Chapter 1241. On this day, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan returned to the prince's residence. The steward handed over a visiting card. Xiao Su took the card, glanced at the lotus pattern on it, and flipped it open. After he finished reading the contents, his expression became somewhat subtle. Chu Qingyan, who was drinking tea, saw the change in his expression and couldn't help but ask, "Who sent the card?" Xiao put the card on the table and raised his eyebrows. "Someone you won't expect." "So mysterious?" She immediately took the card and flipped it open. Her gaze fell on the signature, Xiao. She looked incredulous. "A visiting card for nothing?" Xiao Su took the teacup, took a sip, and pondered. Chu Qingyan continued, "We don't usually have much interaction with him, but he has plotted against us behind our backs several times. What does he want to do by coming to our prince's residence this time? One doesn't visit a temple for no reason. I'm also very curious," Xiao Su said indifferently. She remembered that when they were in Jiangnan, he schemed against the bank and caused Big Ice Cube to suffer a lot of losses. Fortunately, they got it back. But after that, he was the Black Hand hiding in the dark. From time to time, he would reach out to push you into the gutter. People like this had to be guarded against. This subordinate thinks that Lord E is like a weasel paying a visit to a chicken. He doesn't have any good intentions. Maybe he has dug a hole in front of us, and is waiting for us to jump into it. Hualing stood on the side and thought of how Jiangnan's valiant cavalry was fooled by Prince E like they were idiots. He also thought of how they caused trouble for his master later on. A ball of fire burned in his heart. She could understand Hualing's anger. After thinking, she couldn't help but turn her head and ask, "Then this visiting card, do you plan to accept it or not?" "Of course I accept it. Why wouldn't I accept it?" Xiao chuckled. He wanted to see why this third brother came to him. In other words, what tricks did he want to play? Regardless of whether it was a trick or not, he would deal with it as it came. She and Hualing looked at each other. Since Big Ice Cube had decided, they also wanted to see why Xiao had come. Because the time on the invitation was in the afternoon, the concierge came to report that Prince E had arrived not long after lunch. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su went to the living room together. Not long after they sat down, Xiao came in wearing a cloak. Chu Qingyan secretly sized him up. It was at least 32 degrees Celsius outside, but Xiao was wearing a thin and thick spring brocade robe. He even had a cloak over it. Anyone who looked at him would feel warm on his behalf. However, he seemed to be used to it. His face was pale and weak, as if a gust of wind would blow him away. However, his expression was gentle, his face was as gentle as jade, and his figure was tall and straight, which was very in line with the current aesthetic standards. Chu Qingyan felt that Big Ice Cube and the royal family's genes were so good that it made people jealous. Each one of them was like an immortal in a painting. However, she felt that this image was different from the scheming, cold-blooded and heartless Xiao that she had imagined. It shouldn't be someone who looked so harmless. But how many people couldn't judge a book by its cover? Thinking of this, she felt that it was reasonable. She didn't know if it was because her gaze was too obvious, but Xiao, who walked in slowly, turned his head to look in her direction. Just when she thought she was caught red-handed, he smiled at her. His expression was so gentle that he looked like a harmless scholar. Chu Qingyan nodded at him subconsciously. To be honest, she always knew that there was such a strong opponent behind Big Ice Cube. But strictly speaking, this was the first time that she and he were in the same environment on such a serious occasion. At this time, Xiao withdrew his gaze and stood in front of Xiao Su. He bowed slightly. "Eldest brother, Miss Chu, I'm sorry to disturb you all of a sudden." As he spoke, he coughed twice. Although the two were secretly in a hostile state, Xiao Su immediately raised his hand to ask him to sit down when he saw his pale face. There's no need to disturb or feel sorry between brothers. Xiao Su acted like an elder brother, and his voice was not cold. Xiao didn't stand on ceremony and sat down next to him. Looking at the tea that was quickly served, he smiled. "This is Westlake Longjing, right? I can smell it." "Yes, it's Westlake Longjing. Princey is really good. You guessed it right." Chu Qingyan was a little surprised that this person could identify the tea just by the smell of the tea. He was really good. Xiao smiled modestly. "It's not that good. It's just that my body is too weak. I usually stay in the manor and have nowhere to go and nothing to do. So I taste tea when I have nothing to do. I can't say that I'm proficient in tea, but I can name a few types. Listening to the two's conversation, Xiao Su didn't say anything and just tasted his tea quietly. The two of them discussed the topic of tea leaves for a while, and the awkward atmosphere suddenly seemed to have melted. Xiao Ho didn't lead to the main topic, but Xiao Su wasn't in a hurry. Chu Qingyan saw that her big ice cube wasn't in a hurry, so she wasn't in a hurry either. Because they all knew that the one who was anxious was the one who took the initiative to visit Xiao Ho. At this moment, Xiao Ho knew that the two were pretending to be deaf and dumb. One was responsible for chatting, and the other was responsible for watching. If he didn't mention it, the two would probably continue to pretend to be deaf and dumb. He sneered in his heart. The two really had a tacit understanding. Their cooperation was too perfect. He didn't notice it at first, but now that he saw it, he was relieved. His visit was a little sudden, so they were on guard against him. So their reaction was normal. But if they weren't, he should be the one who was worried. After some time, the two of them finally moved away from the topic of tea leaves. Xiao Ho had a whole new level of respect for Chu Qingyan. He had heard that although she was born in the Chu clan, she had grown up in a village. For her to know so much at such a young age, Xiao Ho was rather impressed. But he didn't forget the purpose of his visit. Eldest brother, I have a presumptuous request. I hope you can agree to it. Since the other party didn't say it out loud, he would take the initiative to mention it. It's finally here. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan looked at each other and saw the understanding in each other's eyes. Third brother, you don't have to be so polite. What's the matter? Xiao Su replied with rare patience. Chu Qingyan also nodded in agreement. Xiao Ho nodded. I want to ask eldest brother about a person, or Miss Chu. Because the person I want to know about is a good friend of yours. Chu Qingyan was slightly stunned and pointed at herself. I know her. Xiao Ho nodded again. This person's name is Cheng Yanluo, Divine Dr. Luo's only daughter. Upon hearing Yanluo's name, Chu Qingyan immediately became vigilant. Nothing good could come out of him suddenly asking about Yanluo. After all, this person was so cunning. She didn't know what his motive was. She subconsciously looked at her big ice block. Should she tell him? Chapter 1242. Receiving the little fellow's pleading gaze, Xiao Su looked at the person in front of him and asked casually, May I know why third brother is looking for Miss Cheng? Since third brother already knew that the little fellow was acquainted with Cheng Yanluo, it proved that he was well aware of the relationship between the two. There was no need for further nonsense. However, this made Xiao Su immediately raise his guard against him. He would not allow anyone to harm the little fellow or the people around her, not even his own brother. Xiao Su's question was unavoidable. However, sensing Chu Qingyan's vigilance and Xiao Su's indifference, Xiao Ho was a little annoyed at his rashness. This matter should be done step by step. Otherwise, it would be easy to arouse the other party's vigilance. If that happened, it would be difficult to achieve his goal. Perhaps this was what it meant to be overly concerned. Now that things had come to this point, he could only tell the truth. Otherwise, given the secret dispute between him and Xiao Ho, he was afraid that if he continued to conceal it, the other party would not trust him. Then today's trip would be in vain. I have a friend who is ill. At present, I can't find anyone who can treat her. So I heard that Miss Cheng Yanluo and Miss Chu are friends, so I boldly came to ask about Miss Cheng's whereabouts. I want to see if she can help treat my friend. Xiao Ho's words were sincere, and did not seem to be false. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Although she knew that it would be inappropriate to ask about her, this was about Yanluo after all. She could not casually reveal her information, so she asked, Is it convenient for you to tell us if we know this person? Then she explained, After all, we are in the capital and our identities are a little sensitive. Yanluo is just a commoner, so sometimes she can't afford to offend people and things. Those who were related to the imperial family were usually of high status. She had to ensure Yanluo's safety. Otherwise, when they were safe, Yanluo would be the one to suffer. Xiao Ho felt that her considerations were reasonable. He looked at Xiao Su, who was looking at him quietly. After a moment of silence, he said without reservation, "You know this person?" Then he turned his gaze to Chu Qingyan. "And Miss Chu might be very familiar with her." When he said this, an indecipherable look flashed across his eyes. She still remembered that at that time, that little rascal had asked her for help to escape from the marriage. So even if he could talk to Chu Qingyan face to face now, he couldn't treat her normally. Chu Qingyan was taken aback by his words. She recalled that they had crossed paths before, and Xiao was familiar with her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to her door to seek medical treatment for that person. Suddenly, she had a bad feeling. "The person you're talking about, could it be Zijing?" Xiao nodded without hesitation. "That's her. When she came over from the southern blue continent, she was already poisoned. Now she can only rely on medicine to suppress the poison, unless we can find a way to cure it." It wasn't that he couldn't reveal the relationship between Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo, so that little rascal could seek help from Chu Qingyan herself. That way, he wouldn't have to implicate himself, and he wouldn't have to ask the son of his enemy for help. However, when he recalled that little rascal had once sought help from Chu Qingyan to escape from the marriage, he didn't want her to have too much contact with Chu Qingyan. Although he hadn't met Chu Qingyan many times, he had learned a lot about her from his spies. He knew that this person had a strong influence. If little rascal stayed with her for too long, she would slowly break away from his control. Therefore, he had to reduce their interactions. Therefore, he would rather put down his pride and come to Xiao. Even if he had to face the risk of being rejected and his dignity being trampled on, he still had to visit him personally. In fact, even Xiao himself didn't realize that when it came to dealing with Pang Zijing, his possessiveness had slowly overtaken his rationality. Chu Qingyan didn't know that Xiao had already listed her on Pang Zijing's forbidden list in the future. At this moment, she was shocked by Pang Zijing's situation. "How is that possible? I saw that she was in good health. There was nothing wrong with her." She wasn't doubting Xiao, but she was surprised. Xiao shook his head. "When the poison doesn't relapse, the person will be no different from normal. However, once it relapses, if the poison isn't cured immediately, the person will die in a breath's time." This left Chu Qingyan completely dumbfounded. "How can this be?" Xiao chuckled. He looked at Xiao with a mocking smile. "Which royal family doesn't have secrets?" Xiao felt his gaze and glanced at him. However, he saw that he had returned to his gentle and honest self. He couldn't help narrowing his eyes. He felt that there was a hidden meaning in his words. Chu Qingyan opened her mouth. She wanted to tell him about Yan Luo's situation directly, but when the words reached her mouth, she subconsciously closed her mouth. She subconsciously looked at Big Ice, waiting to see what he would do. At this time, Xiao suddenly spoke. "First Imperial Brother, I know that you've been looking for a book on the art of war that has been lost for a long time. I just happened to find it 2 days ago. Take it as a gift for my visit. I hope that First Imperial Brother won't dislike it." Chu Qingyan knew about the military book. Big Ice had spent a lot of effort to find it, but he hadn't been able to find it. Unexpectedly, it was in his hands. However, it would probably take a lot of effort to find this book. Now that he had taken it out for Pang Zijing without hesitation, it really made people doubt his feelings for her. Xiao didn't show any fanaticism. Instead, he looked at the person in front of him indifferently. Usually, no one could withstand his gaze. However, his third brother smiled calmly in response. He didn't show the slightest bit of fear. Xiao suddenly smiled faintly. "Third brother is also a sentimental person. Let me tell you honestly, Miss Cheng didn't follow us to the capital. We don't know where she is now." Xiao's eyes trembled. He couldn't accept this fact. However, he quickly raised his head and met his gaze. It was as if he wanted to see a flaw in his brows. Unfortunately, the person in front of him was invulnerable. He couldn't see what he was thinking at all. Gradually, his gentle and calm appearance became somewhat disappointed. When he thought of the day when little rascal's poison almost flared up, his eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of dust. It seemed that he would have to send people to find her again. He didn't know if little rascal could hold out until then. Xiao's unintentional emotions surprised the two people present. They looked at each other. They both felt that this Xiao Ho was somewhat unfamiliar. I haven't finished speaking, Xiao Su suddenly added. Xiao Ho immediately turned to look at him. His eyes immediately lit up. Although we don't know her whereabouts at the moment, she sent a letter a few days ago. She will arrive in the capital in 2 days. Xiao Su said slowly. He didn't feel like he was keeping people in suspense at all. Xiao Ho was pleasantly surprised. Good. Many thanks to eldest brother for the information. In a moment I will send the letter to your residence. Please accept this subject brother's kind intentions. Xiao Su nodded. Then it would be impolite to refuse. Although Xiao Ho had won this game on the surface, he had fundamentally lost to Xiao Su. Chapter 1243. After Xiao Ho left, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan walked back to the courtyard, hand in hand. On the way back, Chu Qingyan had yet to recover from the game between Big Ice Block and Xiao Ho. To be precise, it was Xiao Ho's performance today that made her look at him in a new light. As she walked, she asked, Big Ice Block, from your perspective as a man, do you think Xiao Ho has feelings for Zijing? This was something she had vaguely sensed when Xiao Ho mentioned Pang Zijing, but she couldn't confirm it. Hearing this, Xiao Su couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Third brother's change has surprised me. Her eyes lit up. It seemed that Big Ice Block had noticed it as well. She thought for a moment and said with some doubt, I remember Zijing said before that Xiao Ho couldn't have feelings for her. She was so sure at the time that I thought it was impossible for them to be together. Now that I think about it, if we help Zijing, it's a bit like breaking up a marriage. Xiao Su laughed softly. He was a little helpless about the little girl's habit of meddling in other people's business. However, since the little girl recognized him as her friend, he would reluctantly take care. When he was keeping her in suspense, he found that his third brother finally had emotions like a normal person. This was what surprised him. After seeing his fake face for so long, Xiao Su thought that he would never reveal his true feelings. However, his performance today changed his opinion of him. At this time he heard the little girl's opinion. I haven't seen Xiao Ho much. Although I have a lot of negative comments about him, I think that just based on appearance, temperament and his performance today, he is a good match for Zijing. However, if it wasn't for the bad things he has done, I would really approve of Zijing being together with him. After all, it looks like a loving relationship, and it saves us the trouble of getting involved. Maybe Zijing saw through his nature, and chose to stay away from him. The furthest distance in life is when the person you like is unable to stay with you forever. Chu Qingyan touched the hair in front of her chest, and a trace of regret appeared on her face. She recalled Zijing's resolute reaction that day. Even if Xiao Ho liked her, she would not stay. This was a girl who looked crazy, but in fact, she was more rational than emotional. Don't think too much, just wait and see. Xiao Su reached out and stroked her little head, giving this answer. This time, it was already difficult for them to resolve family matters. If they were to get involved in other people's affairs, they would only feel that they were powerless. Chu Qingyan nodded. You're right. We're just bystanders. We shouldn't interfere in other people's lives unless they ask for help. Otherwise, we'll only do bad things with good intentions. Xiao Su smiled and nodded. You've grown up. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. We've already grown up. Don't always think that I'm young. I'm telling you, if you say another word, I'll ignore you. Xiao Su shook his head helplessly, but his eyes inadvertently revealed a doting look. Just as Xiao Ho was on his way to the King of England's mansion, Pang Zijing was also on her way to Prince Yi's mansion. Just like that, the two of them missed each other. When Pang Zijing arrived at the entrance of Prince Yi's mansion, and learned that Xiao Ho had left, the excitement on her face was instantly extinguished. Seeing this, the housekeeper couldn't help but take the initiative to say, Princess, why don't you wait in the mansion for His Highness's return? Pang Zijing immediately shook her head. I don't want to. You said it yourself, we don't know when he'll be back. If he comes back at night, won't I have to sit there and wait until midnight? I won't waste my life doing something like that. Waste your life? The housekeeper thought this princess was very interesting. Every time she said something new, it was puzzling. There was once a great man who said that wasting time is equivalent to murdering for money. After saying this, She shook her head at the housekeeper. You definitely haven't heard of it. It's good that you know this saying. Alright, this princess wants to walk around. If your lord comes back, just tell him that this princess came by. Before the housekeeper could stop her, he saw her turn around and leave with Lu. He couldn't help but sigh and mutter to himself. TCH, if Lord knows that this old servant didn't ask the princess to stay when she came, he will definitely blame this old servant. She originally planned to freeload dinner at his place, but unfortunately he wasn't here. Peng Zhijing felt extremely bored. At this moment, Lu saw that she had nothing to do and was walking around aimlessly. She couldn't help but suggest, Princess, why don't we go to the King of England's mansion to see Miss Chu? Peng Zhijing shook her head. No, I heard that she's been in a bad mood recently. Let's not disturb her. We'll talk about it in a few days. Then where are we going? Lu muttered. Then she thought of something. Princess, didn't someone come from Southern Song? I heard from the people at the relay station that they are in the palace nearby. Should we go and take a look at who they are? She was an imposter to begin with. It was best to stay far away from those people from Southern Song to avoid being exposed. There was no reason for her to take the initiative to approach them. She quickly waved her hands and thought of an excellent reason. This princess's status is higher than theirs. Why would this princess look for them? Of course, we'll wait for them to come and greet us. This is etiquette. We can't lose face, understand? Lu thought that was true. The princess was right. She was short-sighted and didn't consider everything. Fortunately, the princess reminded her. Seeing that Lu had taken her advice, Peng Zhijing instantly sighed in relief. She didn't want to ask for trouble. This princess has decided. I'll take you to eat some snacks. From now on we'll eat from the street to the end. She had heard from Qingyan that there was a snack street in the west of the city that contained delicacies from various places. She had been craving for it for a long time. Unfortunately, she had asked Xiao a few times, but he wasn't interested in those things. He also didn't want to accompany her, so it had been delayed. Now that she finally had time, she might as well go and have a good meal. Although Lu was steady in her work, she was still a 14 or 15-year-old girl. It was the age where she liked to play. Now that she heard that the princess wanted to take her to eat good food, she struggled internally for a moment before happily agreeing. Thus, Peng Zhijing hooked her finger at her and chuckled. Let's go. Follow this princess, and you'll have meat to eat. Just as the two of them were about to head to the west of the city, a few figures suddenly appeared and blocked their path. Peng Zhijing looked at the group of people wearing veiled hats and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. You're blocking our path. There are two ways to resolve this. Either you leave first, or you let us go first. Just as she finished speaking, the leader said in a low voice, Princess, don't you recognize this one? That person had just finished speaking when he raised his hand and took off his veiled hat, revealing a handsome and feminine face. Chapter 1244. The moment Xiao returned to the prince's residence, the steward came up to greet him. Lord, the princess came to find you just now. The steward reported. And then where is she now? He thought that she was in some corner of the prince's residence, so he walked towards his own courtyard. The steward hurriedly said. After the princess found out that she could leave, she left. After saying that, he saw Lord looking at him, so he immediately added. Just half an incense's time ago. She probably didn't go far. Xiao's footsteps paused as he silently pondered. The little rascal must have picked this time to find him to freeload a meal. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come at this time. She kept complaining to him that the relay station's food wasn't to her liking. Thinking of this, Xiao changed his direction. Before leaving, he said to the steward, Tell the kitchen not to prepare Ben Wang's dinner tonight. Ben Wang will return a bit later. The steward hurriedly complied. When he raised his head, his lord had already walked far away. He chuckled. Lord must have gone to find the princess. Then he could drink another bowl of wine to be happy tonight. However, at this time, Peng Zhijing was curiously looking at the person in front of her. This person had very good features. He was tall and straight, and had a gentle and refined appearance. However, for some reason, Pang Zhijing felt that there was a trace of viciousness in his eyes, as if she was some kind of evil person who could not be pardoned. Yu. She wanted to say that she didn't know him, but she suddenly remembered that since he was able to identify her and appeared in front of her with this kind of attitude, then he was definitely someone that the original body knew. If she hastily denied it, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, because she had never seriously sorted out the original body's memories, she couldn't immediately match him. Although she was anxious, she still maintained a calm expression. This princess is forgetful, so I really don't know who you are. So, why don't you formally introduce yourself? Lu'er hadn't been by her side for long. Previously, she didn't live in the imperial city, so she definitely didn't know him, so she could only rely on herself now. She used a very arrogant tone to say this. If she knew him, no one would be able to find fault with these words. It would only make people feel that she was a bit arrogant. In any case, the outside world was saying that she was cruel and unreasonable. She couldn't bear this accusation for no reason, so she would make it come true today. The person who appeared in front of Pang Zhijing was none other than the Southern Blue Prime Minister's only son, Yu Qingxi. When Yu Qingxi heard this, he humphed disdainfully in his heart. Sure enough, she was still as unruly and rude as before. However, there was one thing that was very strange. When she saw him in the past, Pang Zhijing wished she could pounce on him, but now, she seemed to ignore him. This made him somewhat uncomfortable. Could it be that she was playing hard to get? As this thought flashed through his mind, he seemed to have gotten the answer. His impression of Pang Zhijing became even worse. However, he still maintained a good demeanor, and bowed slightly to introduce himself. This one is Yu Qingxi. He had always been arrogant, and because he was quite famous in the southern blue continent, he only used his name when he introduced himself. He knew that 3 words were enough, and his reputation was enough for others to recognize him. However, Pang Zhijing did recognize him, but not because of his fame. At this moment, her mind was buzzing with thoughts. Yu Qingxi? Yu Qingxi. Wasn't he the one who wanted to take her life? Wasn't he the one whom the original owner of this body liked? Oh no, how did he find this place? Could it be that he wanted to kill her again? When she saw the few people standing behind him, she couldn't help but overlap them with the black-clothed men, who tried to assassinate her. Her entire body trembled. Yu Qingxi didn't quite understand why Pang Zhijing actually looked at him with a frightened expression when he said his name. This made him unable to make heads or tails of it. No, this was the Sichuan, and they were in public. He wouldn't dare to make a move so brazenly. With this thought, her body stopped trembling. However, it was still better to escape from this place. Oh, this princess knows. This time, you're in charge of the bridal escort. Congratulations on getting such a good job, and going abroad to play. Good. Then this princess won't disturb your leisure time. Goodbye. After she finished speaking, she was about to walk past him. Of the 36 stratagems, leaving was the best stratagem. However, she had just taken a step when Yu Qingxi stopped her. Pang Zhijing looked up at him a little apprehensively. Is there anything else, young master Yu? Her hidden meaning was that if there was nothing else, then get lost as soon as possible. Yu Qingxi couldn't understand the Pang Zhijing in front of him. Although he had never taken the initiative to find her in the past, as long as she saw him, she would always stick to him. He couldn't chase her away even if he wanted to. Now that he took the initiative to appear in front of her, she wanted to leave. This was a little unreasonable. Yu Qingxi was even more certain in his heart that if she wasn't playing hard to get, then she was afraid that he would mention the evil things she did back then. Therefore, he loathed her even more. Moreover, he wanted to see how long she could pretend for. Princess. Yu Qingxi stood in front of her and ignored her gaze. He said with a smile, "You're right. It's indeed thanks to the princess that I was able to come out this time." So, Pang Zhijing roared in her heart. In her opinion, he just wanted to say that it was thanks to her that he had a chance to kill her for revenge. Pang Zhijing thought this and became even more nervous and vigilant towards him. There's no need to be polite. In any case, we won't have many chances to meet in the future. Why don't? Let's not have any contact with each other from now on. Before she could finish speaking, Yu Qingxi continued. Why don't the princess take me for a walk around here and see how prosperous the capital is? Or perhaps the princess doesn't want to walk around. We can also find a place to sit down and drink tea and chat. We haven't seen each other for so long, so let's reminisce about the old days. After all, you often wanted me to take you out to play in the past. Although I was very busy, I couldn't fulfill it. Pang Zhijing jumped in fright. This person actually wanted to reminisce about the old days with her? What kind of international joke was this? If she walked with him, she would have to constantly be on guard against whether he would suddenly pull out a knife and slash it at her neck. However, at this moment, Yu Qingxi seemed to have seen something. His eyes moved, and then his voice was gentle and tender as he said, I know you like to eat hibiscus cake the most. There's a shop in front that makes pretty good pastries. How about I take you to try it? Pang Zhijing was shocked by his sudden gentleness. What the hell? Didn't they agree that this person would avoid her like a snake and scorpion and hate her to the bone? Why was he acting so abnormally now? At this moment, Yu Qingxi looked behind her and raised his eyebrows slightly. Pang Zhijing followed his gaze and couldn't help but turn back to look. She saw that Xiao had arrived at some point in time. He stood there with elegant features and an indifferent expression. Pang Zhijing subconsciously glanced at Yu Qingxi, then looked back at him. The relationship between her old crush and her current fiancé was so complicated. She subconsciously swallowed her saliva. It's over. Chapter 1245. Who is this? Yu Qingxi looked at Pang Zhijing and asked with a puzzled expression. However, at this moment, Xiao was also looking at her. He narrowed his eyes, wanting to see how she would explain his identity in front of her old lover. Xiao didn't realize that he actually had a serious attitude at this moment. This scene looked very normal, but for some reason, she felt a chill run down her spine, as if a powerful cold air was blowing at her. This is Xiao, the current lord. She introduced him in a proper manner, and then the cold air on her back increased. It changed from economic to powerful. She felt baffled, but she couldn't help but add, he's also my fiancé. As soon as she finished speaking, the cold air retreated. In an instant, she felt that the summer temperature was still acceptable. It didn't matter if it was a little hot, it was better than bone-chilling cold. Yu Qingxi's lips curved slightly. It seemed that his guess just now was right. This person was Xiao, the imperial son-in-law of this unruly princess in front of him. Xiao walked to her side and faced Yu Qingxi together. He said, this gentleman is? Pang Zhijing's scalp tightened again. Why did he come to join in the fun? However, she still smiled and introduced. This is the official in charge of this bridal party, Yu Qingxi Lord Yu. This alienated tone and flat introduction made Xiao's brows relax a little. He nodded at Yu Qingxi. So it's Prime Minister Yu's beloved son. Nice to meet you. Earlier, Yu Qingxi was still thinking about Pang Zhijing's cold and indifferent introduction to her. And she had some bewilderment in her heart. Could it be that it was because of Xiao's appearance that she restrained herself and didn't dare show too much intimacy with me? However, when he heard Xiao's words, he was instantly displeased. What he disliked the most was when others always liked to associate him with his father when they heard his name. It was as if he was only his father's accessory. No matter what he did, others would only see him as the Prime Minister's son and wouldn't affirm him because of his efforts. Although Xiao poked at his sore spot, he still replied with a smile. I've long heard of Lord Yi's great name, but now that I see that Lord is full of energy and isn't as weak as the rumors say, it seems that many rumors aren't credible. Nice to meet you. Great name? The great name of the sickly Lord Yi? Xiao smiled but didn't say anything. At this moment, Pang Zhijing felt that Yu Qingxi's words were so strange. For a moment, she forgot her fear of him. Perhaps it was because she had Xiao by her side that she gained confidence. She said to him in annoyance, if you don't know how to speak, then don't speak. Our family's Lord Yi is in good health. The words that came out of her mouth instantly stunned the two men present. One was, when did she get angry at him, and it was because of another man. The other was, our family? Very good. He was very comfortable with these words. Then he wouldn't fuss about her talking with her old lover for so long for the time being. After she finished speaking, The scene fell silent. She was a little regretful. She chuckled and waved her hand. Why is the weather so hot today? It's weird to stand here and talk. The two men present subconsciously looked at the sky covered by clouds. They clearly didn't feel hot at all. Princess is right. Why don't we go to the tea house in front and have a seat? Yu Qingxi invited with a smile. Pang Zhijing's vigilance rose again. Why did this person want to drink tea and chat with her? It was too suspicious. Just as she was racking her brains to think of a way to refuse him, the person beside her spoke. I'm afraid I'll have to reject young Master Yu's good intentions. This prince promised Zhijing that he would take her out for a walk today, so I won't accompany young Master Yu. Next time, this prince and Zhijing will host a banquet in the residence, and invite young Master Yu to the residence for a chat to satisfy the host's wishes. Pang Zhijing was stunned. When did he agree to go out today? Why didn't she know? Yu Qingxi keenly felt that this Xiao in front of him was hostile to him. Although it was very shallow, he could still see some clues. For example, at this moment, Xiao deliberately said that he wanted to take Pang Zhijing away and invite him as her fiancé. Although he didn't know if Xiao would do this when the time came, at this moment, he had already imperceptibly distanced himself from Pang Zhijing and pulled Pang Zhijing to his side. He had an illusion that Xiao was declaring his sovereignty. At this time, Xiao had already said this, so he couldn't force it. Then I'll have to disturb Lord at that time. Yu Qingxi smiled and said, since the two of you have something to do, then I won't disturb the two of you. Please. Pang Zhijing stared at the person beside her with wide eyes. He sent away the annoying Yu Qingxi with just a few words. As expected, he was amazing. At this time she heard Xiao's gentle voice say, Zhijing, let's go. She instantly had goosebumps all over her body. Such a gentle voice was really flattering. However, in order not to expose herself, she still smiled and nodded. Shaking off the goosebumps on her body, she directly walked past Yu Qingxi and walked forward. Xiao also walked slowly beside her. Yu Qingxi turned around and narrowed his eyes as he watched the two of them leave hand in hand. The subordinate beside him said, Young master, did you also notice that the princess has changed a lot? Yu Qingxi laughed mockingly. It's not like you don't know that she's best at acting. Back then, Ro'er was deceived by her deceptive and obedient appearance and fell into her trap. If this young master hadn't arrived at the right time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The subordinate nodded. He continued, no need to send people to keep an eye on Xiao. You just have to keep an eye on Pang Zhijing and report her every move. This young master doesn't believe that this time in the Sichuan, I won't be able to kill her. When he thought of Ro'er's gentleness and kindness, he loathed Pang Zhijing even more. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and he flung his sleeves and returned to the temporary imperial residence. At this time, Pang Zhijing turned around and saw that Yu Qingxi's shadow was already nowhere to be seen. She couldn't help but sigh in relief. Enemies truly meet on a narrow road. Don't let me meet him again in the future. At this time, she suddenly heard a sarcastic voice beside her. If you can't bear to part with your old flame, you can go back now. I won't stop you. These words made her turn to look at him in confusion. Why do I have to look for him? Who's an old flame? Xiao glanced at her coldly, then looked away and ignored her. She suddenly came to a realization. You're talking about Yu Qingxi. Please, that's at most an unfulfilled secret love. No, according to the original body's blatant pursuit, it should be an unfulfilled secret love. It's not some old flame. Don't get it mixed up. I've never dated him. One look at his sinister appearance, and she knew that he wasn't a good person. She couldn't wait to avoid him. Unfulfilled secret love? Xiao scoffed. Pang Zhijing looked up and saw that he had already walked away with large strides. She immediately jogged after him. Hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you angry for no reason? Chapter 1246. She ran to his side and pulled on his sleeve. Panting, she said, Don't walk so fast. Can't you see that Lu'er can't keep up with you? Lu'er, who was at the side, was innocently implicated. It was clearly the princess who couldn't keep up. It had nothing to do with this servant. Xiao was currently suppressing his anger, and did not want to talk to her at all. Although he did not know what was wrong with him, he did not want to suppress his inner thoughts. He remembered that he used to be very good at controlling his emotions. Ever since he met her, he was affected by her willful laughter and playfulness. In front of her, he gradually stopped wearing his false mask and revealed his true nature. Seeing that he had no intention of paying attention to her, she rolled her eyes and immediately bent down to rub her ankle. Ouch! When Xiao heard the sound, he frowned and stopped. He turned around and walked back to her side. Seeing her pained expression, his heart skipped a beat. He could not help but squat down, wanting to check her previous injury. However, just as he was about to move, he heard her steady breathing. He narrowed his eyes and immediately stood up. His gaze was cold as he said, "Is lying very fun?" When she saw that he was about to get angry, she did not think and immediately rushed over to hug his arm. She shook it coquettishly. "I was wrong. Don't walk so fast. Otherwise it will really relapse. Then it won't count as lying." All of her actions flowed naturally. They were all subconscious actions. She naturally acted coquettishly, as if the two of them had acted out this action countless times. Her soft voice calmed his anger. Xiao glanced at her. "You have a good attitude in admitting your mistake. I will be magnanimous and not pursue this matter. Just don't do it again." She immediately straightened her back and stood in a military posture. She saluted him, "As you command." Xiao was amused by her appearance and shook his head. He continued to walk forward, but this time he slowed down a lot. "Where are we going?" She smiled as she followed beside him. She was the kind of person who would take advantage of others. "West of the city." West of the city. Pang Zhijing immediately imagined a hot and fragrant food street. Blinking her eyes, she suppressed her joy and asked, "Then what are we going to do there?" She didn't quite believe that a clean freak like him would go to such a place. If he was going to do something, she would take Lu, or to eat by herself. Xiao said calmly, "Didn't you say you were going to the west of the city? So you want to take me to eat something delicious?" She widened her eyes, feeling as if she had been struck by good luck. Xiao looked at her like she was an idiot. "What do you think you can do in that place other than eating?" "Oh yeah." She was so happy that she spun around on the spot. She turned around and held Luer's hand as she cheered. Luer, I said I'll take you to eat delicious food. I didn't go back on my words, did I?" Luer glanced at Lord, who was being ignored by her princess, and silently shrank her neck. It was clearly Lord who wanted to take you to eat delicious food. The west of the city was a little far, so Luer suggested taking a carriage. However, Pang Zhijing, who hadn't gone out for the past 2 days because of her foot injury, refused righteously. She had been holding it in for long enough. Today she should take a good look around. Otherwise she would feel as if her foot was crippled again. Xiao originally didn't allow her to walk for a long time, but seeing how excited she was, he didn't stop her. When the group passed by a pastry shop, Xiao suddenly stopped. Pang Zhijing, who was talking to Luer, didn't notice. After a few steps and the people beside her disappeared, she turned around to look for him. Seeing him staring at the colorful pastries, she couldn't help but ask, "Are you hungry?" Xiao didn't answer her. He pointed at the pastries and asked the shop owner to wrap them up. Pang Zhijing stood at the side and watched as he inexplicably ignored her. She felt very wronged. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, a bag suddenly appeared in her hand. Wasn't this what he bought from the shop owner just now? She was surprised and happy as she jogged to catch up with him. "Why did you buy it for me? I'm not hungry." "Don't you like hibiscus cakes?" He looked straight ahead. Why didn't she know? "Oh, right, just now Yu Qingxi said that the original body liked to eat this, but she wasn't the original body. In the future, if you want to eat something, just tell me. Don't just go with someone else. Be careful that you don't get sold, and still help count the money." Xiao's tone was slightly uncomfortable. The insensitive Pang Zhijing didn't notice that there was something wrong with his tone. She said angrily, "Although I'm a foodie, I'm also a foodie with integrity. How can I be cheated by someone else?" However, she thought about it and said suspiciously, "Why are you suddenly so good to me? Do you still remember that you were the one who wanted to sell me back then? Didn't I help you count the money back then?" These words made Xiaoho's whole body tremble. That's right, he was indeed using her back then. Now that she was no longer of any value to him, why did he care about her instead? All of her actions were very strange. He had never seen himself like this before. Seeing his sullen face, Pang Zhijing thought that she was too blunt and hurt his heart. She immediately reflected and opened the hibiscus cake, stuffed one into her mouth, and then said incoherently, "But let me tell you, the hibiscus cake isn't my favorite. My favorite is the red bean cake. In the future, don't buy this for me. Just bring me the red bean cake." Xiaoho's thoughts were pulled out by her words. He looked at the person who had taken advantage of him, and started to tell him what to eat. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. At this moment, Pang Zhijing glanced at him, thinking that he was looking at the hibiscus cake in her arms. So she picked up a piece, tiptoed, and stuffed it directly into his mouth. Then, she patted the cake crumbs on her hands and said with a smile, "You should try the taste too." Xiaoho was stunned by her actions. Her warm and delicate fingertips brushed against his lips, causing him to be absent-minded for a moment. That was why he fell into her trap. At this moment, with a mouthful of the hibiscus cake in his mouth, he tasted a sickeningly sweet taste. It was as if this was contagious, and it went straight to his heart. At this moment, Pang Zhijing was sharing the cake with Lu Er. She stuffed it into her hands. "It's very delicious. Try it." Lu Er expressed her refusal. This was sold to the princess by the lord. If she ate it, she would definitely be scolded by the lord, because she could already feel the lord's sharp gaze. Pang Zhijing was especially helpless. Although she loved to eat sweet things, she really didn't like the taste of the hibiscus cake. However, she couldn't say it in front of Xiaoho, so she could only gloomily eat it one bite at a time. "You Qingxi, you despicable jinx. It's all your fault." She blamed all her resentment on Yu Qingxi. Yu Qingxi, who was on the way back, suddenly sneezed. Who was talking bad about him behind his back? Chapter 1247. After fooling around for a while, they arrived at the western part of the city. It was already evening and the sun was hanging over the mountain peak, as if it would set in the blink of an eye. Many vendors had already opened for business and hung up their lanterns, preparing to enter the market to sell their wares. Pang Zhijing finally swallowed the last piece of hibiscus cake. Fortunately, her appetite was not small, otherwise, she would not be able to eat any delicacies later. "Alright, starting from now we'll eat from one end of the street to the other. If I don't eat everything, I'm not called Pang Zhijing." She spread out her arms and solemnly declared. Xiaoho looked at the endless street and subconsciously held his forehead. He reckoned that he would see a round pig later. While he was still holding his forehead, he heard someone calling him from afar. He looked towards the source of the voice and saw that under the waning lights, that person was standing in the midst of the bustling crowd, waving at him. She had bright eyes and white teeth, and everyone around her had become illusory figures. Only she was there, so distinct. Xiaoho was in a daze for a while. Only when he heard her dissatisfied urging did he slowly walk towards her. "I originally didn't want to enter the mortal world and focus on revenge. It was you who pulled me into the bustling street, and felt the scent of smoke. If I knew when it started, I wouldn't have lost its whereabouts." This street was very lively. In addition, the two's appearance and temperament were very outstanding, so the crowd intentionally or unintentionally squeezed towards them. Before she could reach the vendor she wanted, she was already pushed out. She complained to Xiaoho in a somewhat distressed manner. "It seems that your previous suggestion was right. We should wear a veil hat to cover your face that angers both men and gods. This prince has never done useless work." Xiaoho retorted to her disdain from last time. "You don't need to praise yourself, otherwise you'll be inflated to the sky." She stuck out her tongue and was bumped into again. Fortunately, Xiaoho protected her, otherwise she would have fallen to the side. At this time, Xiaoho frowned and said, "Why don't we go back? How can we do that? It's not easy to come here." She didn't know when the next time would be. She muttered in her heart. Then, her eyes lit up as she thought of a good idea. "How about this? I'll pull your sleeve, and we won't get separated." She reached out to pull his sleeve. Seeing that she was still in high spirits, Xiaoho let out a light sigh. His arm moved, and when she reached out he held her hand. Then his sleeve fell, covering the two people's intertwined fingers. She felt as if her entire body had been electrocuted, and an electric current instantly ran through her entire body. She lowered her head and looked at their interlocked hands, unable to react in time. She only wanted to pull his sleeve. So how did it become holding his hand? At this moment, Xiaoho's voice rang out. It's our turn. You choose. These words instantly made a foodie forget the entanglement in her mind and successfully diverted her attention. She immediately took a step forward and said happily, Boss, 3 hemp balls. Wrap them up in 3 paper bags. Xiaoho looked at her drooling face and couldn't help but slowly curl his lips. The few commoners who were originally in front happily took the silver and lined up behind them. They also looked curiously at the handsome man who was holding the hand of a beautiful girl. That hemp ball was only a few cents, so they just had to wait. They didn't expect that handsome man to be so generous. He directly gave each of them a piece of silver and used his eyes to signal them to go to the back. After taking the silver that was enough for them to eat for a month, they immediately ran to the back. He really hoped that he would meet such a generous man who doted on his wife again. Xiaoho looked at the hemp ball that was stuffed into his hand and was a little stunned. Since young, he had never eaten these roadside stalls. Moreover, he was constantly working hard to become stronger, so he didn't have time to come into contact with these things. At this moment, it was as if he was looking at a new thing and was completely at a loss. Pang Zhijing took a big bite and then urged him to eat quickly, using the excuse that she wanted to eat something else. Xiaoho was silent for a while, as if he was mentally preparing himself. Seeing her eating so happily, stuffing it into her mouth and finishing it in a few bites, he couldn't help but put it in his mouth and took a bite. The taste was unexpectedly not bad. Delicious, right? She blinked and smiled at him proudly, but quickly said, But no matter how delicious it is, we can only eat one. This way, we will have the stomach to eat the next delicacy. You seem to have a lot of experience, Xiaoho said suspiciously. She snorted lightly. That's true. In the past, I could be a fighter among foodies. Let me tell you, if you are greedy for a delicacy and eat too much at once, then not only will you miss the next delicacy, you will also become tired of this delicacy. This way, you will have one less delicacy to enjoy. Wouldn't the gains not make up for the losses? When she talked about food, it was a lesson that was summed up by blood and tears. Xiaoho looked at her speaking with assurance. Although he didn't know where she got this theory from, but thinking about it carefully, it was quite the case. Later, when he recalled her words, he understood that this was also her view of love. Maybe she liked a person very much, but she wouldn't stay for him. It was like she was afraid that she would become addicted, and in the end, she could only give up when she was tired. Thus, in the following time, the 3 of them ate wherever they went. Xiaoho seemed to have opened a new world. He unexpectedly felt that eating these things once in a while was not bad. After eating until they were about 70 to 80% full, Pang Zhijing took the handkerchief from Lu and wiped her mouth. She turned her head to look at a certain someone who was walking on the red carpet in the downtown area. She couldn't help but feel that he was quite pleasing to the eye. Moreover, just now, she stuffed the food that she couldn't eat to him. He even cooperated and finished it, not minding her saliva at all. She was very satisfied. She walked slowly to digest the food. With him by her side to protect her, she wasn't afraid of being bumped into by others. She suddenly remembered something. You did it on purpose just now, didn't you? What do you mean? I know that Yu Qingxi doesn't like others to talk about him and Prime Minister you together. You hit the nail on the head the moment you came up. You didn't see how ugly his expression was at that time, ha ha ha. I don't understand what you're talking about, Xiaoho denied. Actually, he could tell that Yu Qingxi was a very noble and arrogant person. He was good at reading people's minds. Moreover, he often saw this kind of person, so it was very easy to dampen his spirit. Moreover, in these few days, he had already investigated this person's life and all kinds of things. It could be said that in this world, other than Yu Qingxi's parents, he knew him like the back of his hand. Pang Zhijing pursed her lips. Really, what was there to not admit? However, at this moment, She realized that the person beside her was standing still and looking at a place. She couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" "I met an acquaintance." His voice was a little tense. Chapter 1248. Who is it? She felt that there was something wrong with his expression, and couldn't help but follow his gaze. When she saw the two people standing in front of the stall, Pang Zhijing was very surprised and couldn't help but wave at them. Qingyan, look here." Today, Xiao Su saw that the little fellow hadn't eaten much recently, and thought that it had a lot to do with Huang Yi's absence. He couldn't bear to see her like this, so he took her out to look for food. The old street in the west of the city had a certain amount of history, so the two came to this place. Just as the two were discussing whether to add sugar or salt to the tofu pudding, Qingyan suddenly heard a familiar voice calling her, and couldn't help but turn to look. She saw Pang Zhijing, who was dressed in pink, waving vigorously at them. She couldn't help but smile in response. Then, she saw that there was not only a servant girl standing beside her, but also a person who surprised her very much, Xiao. Xiao Su had obviously already seen the two of them. He looked at the two of them for a while, then lowered his head and asked, "Want to go over?" The little fellow smiled slyly and said, "Go, why wouldn't I go? I want to see how these two people usually get along. I'm very curious." Thus, when the two daughters-in-law enthusiastically bumped into each other, the two brothers, Xiao Su and Xiao, expressed that the big lanterns that popped out of each other were an eyesore. "Why are you two here?" Qingyan looked at Xiao behind Pang Zhijing and asked in a low voice. "He said that he wanted to bring me to eat delicious food, so I eagerly followed him. You also know that I have no resistance to good food." Pang Zhijing said and took a bite of the barbecued meatball in her hand, using practical actions to show that she was a foodie. Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. She took out the pancake she just bought and handed it to her. "Try this. It's crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It tastes very good." At this time, because of Xiao Su and Qingyan's intervention, their hands had quietly loosened. After all, there were acquaintances present, so they felt a little embarrassed. However, the pancake had to be held with both hands, or it would be very hot. So Pang Zhijing stuffed the unfinished barbecued meatball into Xiao's hand, forgetting that Xiao Su and Qingyan were still in front of her. She said bluntly, "I don't want to eat. You can eat." Then, Qingyan was stunned, Xiao Su was stunned, and Xiao did not resist and took it. Then he realized that the two people in front of him were staring at him in a very strange way. He then coughed a few times, and an uncomfortable expression appeared on his face. Among everyone, only Pang Zhijing was eating the pancake with relish. She sighed from time to time, not noticing anything. She even handed the half-eaten pancake to Xiao's mouth and asked him if he wanted to have a bite. She completely did not notice how intimate such an action was. Xiao immediately refused righteously, but this attracted the attention of Xiao Su and Qingyan. Pang Zhijing felt wronged. He was eating happily just now, so why did he suddenly turn his back on her? She took a big bite of the pancake to vent her anger. At this time, Xiao Su felt that this place was okay for strolling around, but if they were to talk it would be too noisy, so he suggested, "Let's go to the tea house." Before Xiao could answer, Pang Zhijing, who stuffed a mouthful of pancake, immediately nodded. Okay, I'm dying of thirst." Xiao, who wanted to refuse, could only swallow his words when he saw this. Qingyan looked at the two of them and said, "Then let's go. There's a tea house in front. It's just a few steps away." "Okay, you guys lead the way." Pang Zhijing cheered. Qingyan was affected by her mood. She could not help but laugh and walked in front with Big Ice Cube, while she and Xiao walked behind. "Can you see it?" Qingyan asked the person beside her in a low voice. "See what?" Xiao Su deliberately pretended not to understand to tease her. She could not help but roll her eyes at him, then pointed at the two behind her. "Do you realize that the way they get along is very similar to how we get along? So stupid, the two of them are in love with each other, but it's a pity that they don't seem to realize it," Qingyan said regretfully. "But if Xiao had not done so many bad things, I would like to matchmake the two of them." Xiao Su heard her and knocked her head lightly. "Don't be nosy. This is not between the two of them. It involves a lot of people. Let's just wait and see. She rubbed her head and muttered. I'm just saying. Do we really have to put it into action? Don't keep knocking my head like a teacher. Xiao Su could not help but laugh. Seeing him laugh so happily, she felt unbalanced. She turned her head and decided not to talk to him for 2 hours. Seeing that she was a little moody, Xiao Su felt a little funny. At this time, they happened to pass by a Tonghulu stall. Xiao Su stopped for a while, then returned to her side. At this moment, a brightly colored stick of candied hawthorn appeared in front of Chu Qingyan. At first glance, she was so happy that she instantly forgot about her promise to ignore him. She reached out to take the stick of candied hawthorn and ate it happily. Thus, the Cold War between the two of them, which had lasted for less than 5 minutes, was broken. Pang Zhijing and Xiao Ho, who were walking behind them, saw this scene and could not help but have their 3 views refreshed. Pang Zhijing pointed at Xiao Su and asked the people beside her, "Is this really the undefeated war god, who was able to effortlessly defeat the hundreds of thousands of soldiers of our southern blue continent? Why do I feel that he doesn't look like him at all? How does he not look like him?" Although he was surprised, Xiao Ho felt that her description was a little exaggerated. He's very considerate, knows how to coax people, has a meticulous mind, and knows what the other party wants. Tell me, where can we find such an extraordinary temperament, such an excellent boyfriend? Moreover, he doesn't fit the image of the god of war on the battlefield. Pang Zhijing spared no effort in praising him. She was very envious of Qing Yan for being able to meet such a future partner. At this moment, Xiao Ho coldly said from the side, "Weren't you afraid of eldest brother's aura before? You said that as long as he was in a place, you wouldn't appear within a 1 li radius of him?" Having been exposed, Pang Zhijing laughed mischievously. People's thoughts will always change. There's nothing to be surprised about. The corner of Xiao Ho's eyes twitched. Then you're really fickle. However, the 4 people's trip to the tea house did not succeed in the end, because people from the King of England's residence suddenly came. After Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan received the news, they bid farewell to the 2 people and hurried back. Looking at the 2 people's departing figures, Pang Zhijing said with some regret, "I don't know when the next time everyone can drink tea together will be." After hearing this, Xiao Ho frowned slightly. He felt a little uncomfortable with the melancholy of parting that was often revealed in her words. He said, "As long as you have the heart, you will be able to gather them." She could only nod her head sadly. "All right." At this moment, 2 long-awaited figures had already appeared at the entrance of the King of England's residence. Chapter 1249. Little Yen, this is the residence of the King of England. An elegant voice sounded on the street. The passers-by looked over and saw a handsome young man in white robes. I see it. Those are big words. I'm not blind." The beautiful woman stood beside him. When she heard his words, she waved her hand as if to say, "You're so annoying." Along the way, he kept talking to her. He even patiently explained the name of the mountain and the story of the river to her. She could only keep rolling her eyes. "Oh, I see." The man nodded and said, "Do you see that restaurant? The roast duck there is delicious. I'll take you there when we have time." The beautiful woman held her forehead. Ever since she forgave him, he had turned into a nagging maniac. The most he did every day was talk to her, as if he wanted to make up for all the words he had said in the past few years. "Okay, can we talk later? Let's go into the residence first, okay?" She negotiated. The man smiled and nodded while holding her hand. "Okay, whatever you say." The man looked up and stood shoulder to shoulder with the person beside him at the entrance of the residence. His eyes were filled with nostalgia. For half a year, they were on the brink of death. She had never left him, and she had finally returned. "Master Ethereal is back." "You're finally back." At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the other side of the street. It was choked with excitement and joy. Ethereal and Chengyan Luo turned around and saw 2 figures walking toward them, their backs shadowed by the faint moonlight. Although the sky was dark and they couldn't see each other's faces clearly, the familiar feeling made them excited. They couldn't suppress their joy. "Master." "Little girl." The four of them quickly gathered at the entrance of the residence. Why didn't you tell us you were coming back? If Water Spirit hadn't sent someone to inform us, we wouldn't have been able to welcome you immediately. Chu Qingyan went forward and hugged Cheng Yanluo tightly. Then she said rather sadly. Cheng Yanluo smiled brightly. It's all to give you a surprise. Ethereal explained with a smile. Actually, due to the heavy rain 2 days ago, it was difficult for us to send a letter over. So we thought that we had already sent a letter once, so we didn't write another one. We thought that we would be home soon. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaoyan rolled her eyes. Don't you know how to chat? Okay. Yen is right. It's a surprise, not an accident. Ethereal immediately corrected herself. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan looked at each other and saw surprise in each other's eyes. Chu Qingyan whispered in Yanluo's ear. Have the two of you overcome all difficulties, untied the knot in your hearts, and achieved positive results? Qing Yanluo snorted. It's not that easy. He's still on probation. If he doesn't perform well in the future, I'll kick him out. Can you bear to? She expressed her doubts. Qing Yanluo choked. Then her gaze drifted as she said, at most, we'll just leave him hanging for a few days and bring him back. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. It seemed that the two of them had progressed so quickly after not seeing each other for so long. There was no more resentment, no more inexplicable conflicts in their hearts, and no more arrogant self-esteem. They stood in front of each other, transparent, and no longer hiding their deep love. This was the best outcome. On the side, the two beloved women were whispering to each other, sometimes laughing out loud, sometimes pursing their lips and smiling at each other. Xiao Su and Xiaoyan couldn't help but smile along with them. At this moment, Xiao Su patted Ethereal's shoulder lightly. Welcome home. Although his tone was normal, Ethereal could hear the joy and relief in his master's voice. Tears welled up in his eyes as he nodded heavily. I'm back. Let's go in. Don't stand here like a fool. Chu Qingyan immediately urged them when she came back to her senses. All right, we've been rushing all this way and we're about to fall apart. Cheng Yanluo stretched her shoulders and complained. Bear with it a little longer. Later, we'll take a bath, have a meal, and have a good night's sleep to get rid of our fatigue. Chu Qingyan smiled and patted her hand. Thus, the four of them slowly entered the residence. Just now, when they were talking at the entrance, someone had already spread the news of Ethereal's return to the residence to the backyard. When they entered the mansion, a large group of people swarmed over. Hello, little Yama, you're finally back. Uncle Chu missed you so much. Mr. Chu was the first to jump out. He reached out and pinched Ethereal's face, stretching it out. Then he exclaimed in surprise, alive, you're really back. Ethereal snatched his pitiful face from Mr. Chu's hand and said innocently, did old Master Chu think he saw a ghost in broad daylight? Mr. Chu didn't have time to entertain him. He turned to little Yama and said, did Hollow bully you recently? If he did, tell Uncle Chu. Uncle Chu will beat him up for you. This was an unfamiliar environment. Although many people knew each other, they were still unfamiliar with the place since it was their first time here. However, Mr. Chu's words unknowingly dispelled Cheng Yanluo's discomfort. She felt touched that someone was standing on her side. Ethereal rubbed his nose and said weakly, how would I dare to bully her? He didn't even have the time to feel pain. Cheng Yanluo looked at him provocatively as if saying, look, I also have a family. If you dare to bully me, you should think twice. Ethereal didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he was just as touched as she was. Everyone was taking good care of them. Turin, Hualing, and Turin all came forward to give him a big hug and lightly pat his shoulder. Hualing's face was full of tears. You're finally back. I finally don't have to answer old Master Chu's question every day about why you're not back yet. Hualing was very happy. My shoulder still hurts. You're back just in time. Give me a few acupuncture needles. Turin had a smile on his face. A large group of patients are already rubbing their hands and waiting for your return. Prepare yourselves mentally. Ethereal's scalp tightened. Did he have to give him a greeting gift like this? However, after being away for so long, they finally met again. When they spoke, It was as if they had returned to the days of the past. There was no separation. Everyone had just met yesterday. Cheng Yanluo stood on the side, watching him banter with everyone. She smiled brightly and a strange emotion flashed through her eyes. Chu Qingyan noticed the change in her expression. She walked to her side and asked in a low voice, "What are you thinking about?" "It's nothing. I can't help but feel happy for him when I see how close he is with everyone." After speaking, her eyes were filled with tears. She continued, "In the past, I was always worried about whether he would be lonely, or if there would be no one to take care of him. Now that I see everyone, I'm very happy. In the days when I wasn't around, he had a group of friends by his side. I'm very grateful to the heavens for being so tolerant." Chu Qingyan patted her shoulder and said gently, "But to Ethereal, no one can compare to you. So you have to be good in the future, understand?" She smiled through her tears. "Okay." Chapter 1250. As the two had just returned, Chu Qingyan immediately arranged for someone to prepare hot water for them, so that they could wash away their fatigue. When everyone sat down again, it was already an hour later. Everyone was curious about their experiences in the past 6 months, and the two were also curious about what had happened in their absence. Thus, they were having a pleasant conversation. "Ethereal, have you recovered from your injuries?" Hualing asked worriedly. Although he was in high spirits, he still trembled with fear when he recalled his serious injuries. Ethereal nodded. "I've fully recovered. It's mainly because of Master's superb medical skills and Yanluo's meticulous care. Otherwise, I might have gone to meet the King of Hell, or be bedridden forever." When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but turn to look at Cheng Yanluo, silently expressing their admiration and gratitude for her. If it weren't for her, they might not have been able to see their companion again. Father Chu stood up in shock, then said earnestly like a patriarch, "Kong, little King of Hell spent so much effort to save you. He's deeply affectionate. You don't have anything to repay him with, so give yourself to him. That's what the storytellers in the tea houses all say." "Uft." Cheng Yanluo, who was drinking water, spat it out. "What the hell?" Speaking of which, she had lost both the person and the heart. She had suffered a great loss, all right? However, Ethereal played along with Father Chu's words. "If Yanluo is willing, I'm willing." Everyone was gratified. This blockhead had finally been enlightened. It wasn't easy. Cheng Yanluo, on the other hand, felt that this person was becoming more and more shameless. So annoying. However, she blushed in embarrassment. Chu Qingyan smiled at the side. She felt that it wasn't easy to see them finally get married after going through so much. She couldn't help but interject. "Then when can we attend your wedding banquet?" "Little girl." Cheng Yanluo flared up as if her tail had been stepped on. Ethereal immediately stood up and said to the young princess consort, "Then I'll have to ask the young princess consort to help me arrange it. This subordinate thinks that autumn is a good time." "Hey hey hey." Cheng Yanluo shouted angrily. "Autumn is just nice, the weather is good, it's not cold, not hot, it's very suitable for marriage." "Okay, I'll go back with my mother to help you look at the date." Chu Qingyan nodded, very happy to accept. "Thank you, young princess," Ethereal said gratefully. She was clearly talking about her life, but she was so blatantly ignored. Cheng Yanluo expressed her sadness. Everyone else present was dumbfounded as they watched the young princess and Ethereal discuss such an important matter in just a few words. Hualing couldn't help but poke Ethereal. "Good brat, you're quite fast. You said this in front of your master and the young princess consort, because you've made up your mind that Miss Ching won't brush you off, right? Ha ha ha, I reckon you'll have to kneel on the washboard when we get back." In the face of Hualing's schadenfreude, Ethereal looked helpless. If not for Xiaoyan's insistence, he wouldn't have forced the marriage in front of everyone. He had already missed too much time. He didn't want to miss out on her again. At this moment, Chu Yunxing's father raised his hand and said to his daughter, "Daddy wants to be a flower boy." Chu Qingyan's head was filled with black lines. The crowd didn't understand the meaning of this word, and looked at the two of them in confusion. He heard her say, "Daddy, flower girls are all for children." Chu Yunxing's father felt wronged. "But Daddy is a child." Chu Qingyan. At this moment, Ethereal suddenly felt his master's gaze on him. He blinked and instantly received the hint. He immediately said, Sure, we're very happy to have Elder Chu as our flower boy. It's a great honor. Chu Yunxing's father was instantly overjoyed. Cheng Yanluo's mouth twitched. She was being represented again. Chu Qingyan was dumbfounded. Did they even know what a flower boy was supposed to do? Then everyone talked about Ethereal's recovery process. They learned from Cheng Yanluo that when the treatment started, he was already on his last breath. If it weren't for the medicine, he would have died. The treatment process was very painful. At first, he was in a coma. Even after he recovered, he couldn't speak or move his limbs. Moreover, the recovery process was very uncomfortable. He often couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. He was in so much pain that he was covered in cold sweat. After the scabs formed, he often wanted to scratch them because of the large area of the wounds. If it weren't for his strong willpower, the scabs would have been torn open and the infection would have relapsed. After hearing this, everyone looked at Ethereal with a trace of heartache. He had been injured so badly that it wasn't easy for him to survive. It was already a blessing from the heavens to see him appear in front of everyone in one piece. It's all in the past now. Live well in the future. Xiao looked at Ethereal and smiled faintly. Ethereal nodded solemnly. I understand. Everyone left so as not to disturb the two of them. When only the two of them were left in the hall, Cheng Yanluo rolled her eyes at him. You've grown up, haven't you? How dare you force me to marry you? You better give me an explanation. Ethereal had just opened his mouth when she said, You don't have to explain. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. Seeing her throwing a tantrum, Ethereal reached out to hold her hand and said sincerely, Xiaoyan, don't worry. I'll always be by your side, dead or alive. Cheng Yanluo immediately raised her hand to cover his lips. Don't talk nonsense. It wasn't easy for me to save you. If I let you ruin me like this, I might as well just leave you there and not care about you anymore. Ethereal leaned close to her ear and chuckled softly. I won't. Because I know you can't bear to part with me. Cheng Yanluo blushed. This person was becoming more and more indecent. He was so annoying. After being lovey-dovey for a while, the two of them separated and returned to their respective rooms. After all, they had spent a lot of energy on the road and needed to make up for it. Cheng Yanluo had just returned to her courtyard in a light mood, when she saw someone standing in the distance. He was looking up at the sky with his arms crossed. It was obvious that he was waiting for her. She walked closer to take a closer look, and realized that it was Hualing. Hualing knew that she had returned when he heard her voice. He turned and nodded slightly at her. Is something the matter? Cheng Yanluo was puzzled that he had suddenly appeared in her courtyard. Because Hualing was Morong's brother, she spoke more politely than usual. Hualing was no longer as jumpy as before. He looked at her calmly and solemnly. Miss Cheng, I'm very happy that you've returned safely. I'm also very happy that you and Ethereal have reconciled, but... Chapter 1251. She only heard Hualing seriously say, Ethereal's feelings for you have been obvious to us brothers for so many years. We feel sad for him and sad for him at the same time, because the responsibility on our shoulders is not only for our master, but also for Xiao cavalry and the common people. These years, although he has not been on the front line with us, Ethereal has used his medical skills to save many people. In our eyes, he is also a hero of the common people. If this time, you really decide to walk with him for the rest of your life, I hope you can be more tolerant of him and not leave him so easily. I hope you don't disappoint him. For men who have been ridden by Xiao cavalry, except for those who are not moved, once they are moved, it will last forever. He paused and chuckled. Although my request sounds rude, you can treat it as his family's expectations for you. It was true that he liked to argue with Ethereal the most, but Ethereal had always been the brother he valued the most in his heart. No matter how much they dissed each other, Ethereal was the one who wanted him to be happy the most. Cheng Yanluo's heart was incomparably moved. In the past, she did not understand Morong's feelings for them, and always wanted him to choose between her and them. In fact, later on, she found that she was always doing some very stupid things. They were them and she was her. To Morong, they were all very important, just like the palm of his hand. Xiao Su and the others were the back of his hand, his shield protecting him. She was the palm of his hand, protected and treasured by him. There was no comparison at all. She was the one who was going down a dead end. Now that she finally came out, how could she easily give up on this man who loved her as much as his life? Her eyes were clear and sincere. You are really his best brothers. These, even if you don't say it, I will do it. Hualing seemed to be relieved after hearing this, then raised his usual smiling face. Then tonight, just treat it as I'm talking nonsense. I'm thinking too much. I wish you two a long life together, and have a child soon. Cheng Yanluo's face instantly darkened. Did he look like someone who hated to be married? However, her heart was still warm. This trip down the mountain, she seemed to have gained a lot. For example, a love that had broken through a mirror and a sincere friend. Looking at Hualing's departing figure, she couldn't help but rejoice for Morong that he met such a group of brothers who treated him with sincerity. Qingxi Night Market. Pang Zhijing rubbed her belly, which seemed to be a few months pregnant, and burped without a care for her image. She took the handkerchief from Lu and wiped her mouth and hands. Then, she turned around and handed it to the person beside her. Xiao Ho looked at the handkerchief that she had wiped everywhere, and reluctantly wiped his hands. I'm so full. I feel weak all over. I feel like if I'm allowed, I can just sleep anywhere. She whined and complained. At the same time, she staggered and almost fell down. Xiao Ho quickly pulled her back. Looking at her tired face, if he had known earlier, he wouldn't have let her stay so late. He helplessly pulled her to his side, then held her hand and walked back. She turned to look at the calm profile of the person beside her, and couldn't help but say, Xiao Ho, let's take the carriage back. It's already so late, it's not safe to walk at night. There are people on this road, so it's quite safe. Also, you look very safe, so don't worry. Xiao Ho rejected her suggestion without even thinking. What do you mean look very safe? Although this princess can't be considered a beauty that can cause the downfall of a city, I still have a face that can captivate the birds and beasts. How can you say that? She paused, and her angry little face revealed a suspicious expression. Are you taking this opportunity to take revenge on me? Xiao Ho felt that it was fine to just listen to her self-evaluation, and didn't need to take it seriously. However, he had some doubts about her last sentence. Revenge? That's right. Just now, I lied to you and said that I bought you a non-spicy drumstick, and then I had the boss secretly add chili to it. You must be holding a grudge, so you want me to walk until my legs break. You won't let me take the carriage. You're such a calculative bad silver. Can't you hold a boat in your stomach? Faced with her unreasonable accusation, Xiao Ho truly understood what it meant to say that only women and villains were difficult to deal with in this world. If you don't have the strength, then talk less, he said coldly. Humph. This baby has a little temper. Xiao Ho, you'll lose your baby like this. After saying this, she flung his hand away and walked with Lu who was lagging behind. Her actions told him that she didn't want to talk to him anymore. Xiao Ho, on the other hand, was still immersed in that sentence just now. Baby. She was already an adult, yet she still called herself a baby. That was too funny. However, he smiled. If they had a baby, who would it resemble more? Seeing that she was angry, he didn't even comfort her. Pang Zhijing was even angrier now. Lu who was standing at the side and watching everything, couldn't help but laugh and explain for Xiao Ho. Princess, Lord didn't let anyone find a carriage because you ate too much. If you don't walk to digest your food, you won't be able to sleep tonight. Is that so? After hearing this, she was a little stunned. Could it be that she had misunderstood him? At this moment Lu nodded heavily. Lord treated the princess so well. He would help her eat whatever she couldn't finish. Even if he didn't want to eat, as long as the princess gave it to him, he wouldn't refuse. Along the way, she had witnessed every bit of the two's love and abuse. It made her want to find someone to pamper her. It seemed that she was really being unreasonable. Pang Zhijing was a person who knew when she was wrong. Knowing that she was wrong, she returned to his side without another word. She smiled again and stuffed her hand back into his. returning everything to how it was before. Xiao felt a small and familiar hand in his palm. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and look at her. The latter returned him a big smile. He was helpless. What a fickle little rascal. However, he held her hand even tighter. He didn't want her to slip away again. Later, when Xiao recalled the bright smile on her face when the two of them walked on the busy street, his heart couldn't help but ache. That was one of the few times the two of them went out to play. It also became the last beautiful memory of his life. After sending the little rascal back to the relay station, Xiao turned to leave. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, a man in black appeared in front of him. "Lord, our crown prince invites you for a chat." Xiao raised his eyebrows. Pang Huang came to the capital. In the imperial study, Eunuch Xiao came in with a letter in his hand. "Your Majesty, there's news about the matter you sent someone to investigate. Please take a look." Eunuch Xiao handed over the letter in his hand. Hearing this, Sichuan Emperor put down the memorial in his hand. He took the letter and opened it. He took out the paper inside and unfolded it. There were many things written on it. The more Sichuan Emperor read, the more his eyebrows furrowed. Finally, he slammed the letter on the table. What a Xiaosu! What a Chu Qinyan! The emperor was furious. His anger couldn't be quelled. Chapter 1252. Eunuch Xiao was startled by this sudden turn of events. In the past year he had never seen His Majesty so angry. Trembling with fear he said, "Your Majesty, please calm down. Anger is harmful to the body. Taking care of your body is more important." Sichuan Emperor was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. He pointed at the letter on the table and said angrily, "Take a look for yourself. How can Jin not be angry about this matter? How can Jin not be angry?" After receiving His Majesty's permission, Eunuch Xiao finally dared to step forward and take a look at the letter. Just one look was enough to make him tremble with fear. The letter was densely packed with information about Xiao Su and Chu Qinyan. It said that when Xiao Su was in Lian City, he had an extremely outstanding strategist called Chu Yan. Most of the matters in Lian City were handled by him. Moreover, when they were fighting against the Southern Song army, Chu Yan also followed along and gave advice. He contributed a lot, but this person was indeed Chu Qinyan in disguise. Regardless of whether she had contributed or not, this was the crime of deceiving the emperor. Reading further, Xiao Su and Chu Qinyan had left Lian City for a period of time. Their whereabouts were unknown. This was desertion without permission. With these two crimes added together, if they were to be dealt with, they would most likely be dealt with severely. Eunuch Xiao's fingers couldn't help but tremble. It was no wonder that His Majesty would be so angry. The emperor's desire to control was very strong. Sichuan Emperor was someone who wouldn't allow others to deceive or betray him. He always thought that this son of his would obediently listen to his orders in Lian City and not cause trouble. He didn't expect that once he left his sight, he would actually do so many infuriating things. However, this didn't make the Sichuan Emperor furious. He had long been suspicious of his son, and had been on guard against him since he was a child. He had always tried to figure out his son with the most malicious attitude. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't find any evidence against him, the Sichuan Emperor wouldn't have kept him alive until now. Sichuan Emperor heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the deceitful side of him. It was as if the prey he had been waiting for many years had finally been caught. He could finally make his move. At first, Eunuch Xiao sensed that His Majesty was furious. Now he saw that although His Majesty's face was gloomy, his eyes were shining as if he was planning something. This made Eunuch Xiao shiver involuntarily. Back then, when someone reported that the Luo family was plotting a rebellion, His Majesty had the same expression on his face that night. Sure enough, the next day, the Luo family was beheaded, exiled, and imprisoned. Eunuch Xiao suddenly felt worried for Xiao Su and Chu Qinyan. What should he do? His Majesty didn't seem to want to give up so easily. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door of the hall. "Go and see what's happening so late at night." Sichuan Emperor waved his hand and ordered. Eunuch Xiao immediately went down. When he opened the door, he found that it was one of the palace servants who served the fourth prince. Seeing that he was panting and very anxious, Eunuch Xiao couldn't help but ask, "What happened? Don't you know that His Majesty is ready to rest?" Eunuch Xiao, His Highness suddenly vomited blood. The imperial physician is currently on his way to the main hall. This servant has come to report to His Majesty. After the servant caught his breath, he immediately spoke without stopping. Xiaoji was stunned. What was going on? Why did it all happen at the same time? The fourth prince was His Majesty's favorite. He had to report to His Majesty immediately when such a big thing happened. Therefore, he stepped aside and let the servant in. Sichuan Emperor was still thinking about how to punish Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan when he saw a person following behind Xiaoji. He narrowed his eyes. He thought that this palace servant looked familiar, but before he could recall who he was, he heard him cry out this grievous news. The West Xian Emperor was stunned. He sat on the dragon throne in a daze. Eunuch Xiao had to call out to him several times before he came back to his senses. "Quickly, prepare the carriage. I want to see Ranner." Sichuan Emperor immediately stood up and walked out of the hall. This was the first time he had seen His Majesty so panicked. Eunuch Xiao didn't dare to delay. He immediately pulled the servant and left behind Sichuan Emperor. At the same time, Xiaoho was following the man in black through a long secret passage. Suddenly, a magnificent house appeared in front of him. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He had heard that the Prince of Nansong had always liked to show off. The more gorgeous and exquisite, the better. He was a person who knew how to enjoy life. Now that he saw it, it was somewhat in line with the rumors. At the gate, there was already someone waiting there. When he saw Xiaoho, he bowed and took over the man in black's mission to lead him in. Walking past the small bridge and the flowing water, walking past the lotus pond and the moonlight, a pavilion appeared in front of him. This pavilion was situated right beside the lake, allowing one to enjoy the scenery on the lake. One could also drink wine while facing the moon. It was poetic and elegant. A man was sitting in the pavilion. He was tall and strong, but his face was resolute and handsome. His long hair hung down on both sides of his body. He was unkempt, but there was a sense of carefreeness about him. He reminded people of the wild horses on the grassland. "Prince Pang, long time no see. How have you been?" Xiaoho stood on the steps and cupped his hands with a smile. "Indeed, it has been a few months." Pang Huang moved his body and changed his posture to lean against the pillar. He beckoned, "Princey, please take a seat. Don't be so polite." Xiaoho admired his unruly posture. He sat down across from him and sized him up. Then he said, "Your Highness looks much better. It seems that your body has recovered well." Peng Huang smiled. "Thanks to Prince Yi's herbs, I was able to recover my inner energy. Now my body is almost fully recovered." "That's because your Highness has a good foundation. If it were someone else, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to achieve such results even after several months of recuperation," Xiaoho said politely. Peng Huang accepted his praise and said to him, "This is the strong liquor I brought from Nansong. Try it and see if it suits your taste." As he spoke, he clapped his hands. 7 or 8 enchanting women walked into the pavilion, their clothes fluttering in the wind. Just by looking at their faces, one could tell that they were not Xixian girls. Each of them had an exotic charm. They were all wearing clothes that exposed their navels. They were bold and unrestrained. All of them surrounded Peng Huang, singing and laughing. Their laughter was enchanting and free. Peng Huang immediately waved his hand and said, "I didn't ask you to come here to serve me. You guys go to Lord Yi and serve him." When the sisters came in, they saw the gentle and elegant Xiaoho sitting there. They were all overjoyed and wanted to go over. Unfortunately, the crown prince was here, so they didn't dare to show their thoughts. Now that they received the crown prince's order, they all went to Xiaoho in a line. Xiaoho looked at the dazzling women beside him and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Your Highness, what is the meaning of this?" "Prince Yi, your medicine healed my injuries. I am indebted to you. So I ordered my men to carefully select these beauties. Tonight, I will give you an unforgettable night. After all, there is an old saying, isn't it hard to enjoy the grace of a beauty?" Peng Huang smiled ambiguously at him. Chapter 1253. Xiaoho couldn't help but frown at his words. Isn't your highness here to discuss important matters with this prince? Peng Huang's hand paused as he raised his wine cup. He looked at Ji Yunshu and chuckled. Isn't this a good time to enjoy yourself with beauties and wine? There's plenty of time to discuss proper matters. There's no need to rush. Moreover, this prince is weary from the long journey, and didn't invite Prince Yi to a welcoming feast. Not only did I rely on myself, I even brought beauties for Prince Yi. Don't you think this prince is very generous? Hearing this, Xiao chuckled. Your Highness the Crown Prince is indeed very interesting. Hearing his affirmation, Peng Huang's tone became even more ambiguous. Then tonight, pick a few that you like and serve them. You can even take them into your room. They've all been trained. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. After he finished speaking, the foreign beauties bashfully pouted. Your Highness, you're so annoying. Peng Huang laughed out loud. However, Xiao raised his hand and stopped the women beside him from approaching. He looked up at Peng Huang's confusion and said apologetically, It seems this prince won't be able to enjoy your highness's kindness tonight. Why? Peng Huang leaned back in his chair and looked at Ji Yunshu inquisitively. Xiao said awkwardly, A few days ago, this prince and the princess were engaged. The wedding date is near. If any unfavorable news were to spread, it would affect the diplomatic relations between the two countries. Therefore this prince, his unspoken words were understood by everyone present. The women immediately looked aggrieved. Although Xiao rejected them tactfully, they thought they were pretty good looking. Why couldn't he take a liking to them? Each of them turned to their prince and complained silently. Seeing Peng Huang's gaze, Prince Yi looked at Peng Huang and said, Don't worry. Peng Huang caught the gazes of the beauties and spoke for them. Prince Yi, you don't have to worry too much. No one will know about your relationship. Even if my royal sister finds out, she won't dare to do anything out of line. Last time, she was bold enough to change our plan and set you up. You can take your revenge. Anyway, her status in the Southern Blue Empire is very important. If anything happens to her, I will arrange for a princess to come over. Other than going through the formalities with your emperor, it won't be a hassle. Just as Peng Zhijing had said to Chu Qingyan, the Southern Blue Kingdom did not lack princesses. Once a princess fell, thousands and thousands of other princesses would stand up. When Xiao heard his words, he suddenly felt a wave of anger rise in his heart. He curled his fingers and endured it. At this time, the women who had been ignored by Xiao began to unwillingly talk about it all at once. Your Highness is right. This princess has a bad reputation in Southern Song. She's unruly and willful. How can she be as gentle as us sisters? That's right, that's right. This servant was fortunate enough to witness the princess's trip. She was simply arrogant and despotic. This servant also heard that after the princess fell in love with young Master Yu Qingxi, she boldly confessed her love. The whole city knew about it and many people were making fun of her. That's right. Because young Master Yu's heart belongs to someone else. The princess made a move on his fiancé when she couldn't get him. Her methods were very cruel. This servant was scared. Everyone became more and more excited as they talked. They spoke all kinds of nonsense. However, no one noticed that Xiao face was getting darker and darker. The veins on the back of his hand were popping out, because he was exerting too much force. Peng Huang listened to their conversation with great interest. As he listened, he felt that something was wrong. It seemed that Xiao hadn't said a word from beginning to end. He couldn't help but turn to look at him. Prince Yi, why aren't you talking? Xiao lowered his eyes and laughed lowly. Your Highness, have you heard of an old saying? What is it? Peng Huang was puzzled by his irrelevant question. Xiao slowly raised his head. His gaze was as cold as ink. Summer insects can't talk about the ice. Frogs in the well can't talk about the sea. This saying is so profound. What does it mean? These women had never been to school and were illiterate. Most of them looked at him in confusion. Among the people present, only a few were literate. When they heard Xiao's words, their faces turned pale, and they were completely at a loss. When Peng Huang heard this, he looked at him in disbelief. Are you trying to defend this prince's useless royal sister? Xiao's expression was as gentle as usual. This prince is only speaking the truth. Let's see how your highness interprets it. Peng Huang looked at him deeply. Although there was a smile on his face, there was coldness in his eyes. He seemed to be angry and was no longer as calm as before. He also felt that Xiao Ho hadn't looked at the women since they came in. His body was full of resistance. Peng Huang couldn't help but raise his hand and ask the bewildered women to leave first. Although these women's status was very low, they had all gone through many layers of training to reach this level. Observation was the most basic skill. Ever since Xiao Ho said that old saying, they felt that the atmosphere in the pavilion was different. It was suffocating. Now that Peng Huang asked them to leave, they felt as if they had been pardoned. They immediately lifted their skirts and left, not daring to stay for a moment. "Princey, you've scared these beauties," Peng Huang said with a faint smile. Xiao Ho curved his lips into a smile and said innocently, "This prince doesn't seem to have done anything." Peng Huang swirled his wine cup and said slowly, "It's because you didn't do anything that it's scary." Xiao Ho asked, "What do you mean? I'd like to hear the details." "With beauties by your side, you can stay calm and look straight ahead. Everyone says that heroes can't resist the charms of beauties. But it doesn't work on Princey. I admire your strong composure," Peng Huang said unhurriedly. Xiao Ho smiled faintly. "Your Highness, you're overpraising me." Peng Huang smiled. His eyes suddenly fell on Chu Li's face. His tone was unpredictable. "However, I think there's another reason. That is, none of the beauties here are the ones in your heart. If you meet the one in your heart, then even heroes can't resist the charms of beauties." Xiao Ho felt that there was a hidden meaning in his words. He seemed to be hinting at something. "Your Highness, we're in a cooperative relationship. If you have something to say, you can say it directly. There's no need to beat around the bush." Because his voice was always gentle and warm, his words didn't make people feel disgusted. At this moment, Peng Huang withdrew his gaze and looked at the wine cup in his hand. He swirled the cup with his fingers and looked at the mellow wine swirling inside. It was so clean and clear that it could reflect the light of the lanterns in the corner of the pavilion. It was gorgeous and colorful. Then he said faintly, "Princey, are you interested in my sister?" "What?" Xiao Ho was stunned and didn't react at all. Peng Huang raised his eyes and looked at him again. "Because people's eyes don't lie." Chapter 1254. Peng Huang's words caused Xiao Ho to be completely stunned. This wasn't the first time he heard someone say this, but each time, the reaction in his heart was stronger than the last. Xiao Ho's obvious reaction made Peng Huang even more certain of his guess. "I knew it. Why didn't you blame my sister when she tricked you? Instead, you took your anger out on me. This kind of differential treatment really makes one jealous." Peng Huang retracted the light in his eyes and leaned back in his chair. Although it sounded like he was accusing him, his tone wasn't. He raised his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. Xiao Ho was silent for a while. He quickly restrained his emotions and drank it in one gulp. The princess is only a chess piece in the plan. It's useless to punish her. Plus, this prince disdains to bicker with women. It's not like what the crown prince said. Peng Huang waved his hand. "You don't need to find excuses. Let's not beat around the bush. This prince really doesn't understand why you would like someone like Peng Zhijing. She doesn't have the gentleness a woman should have. It's fine if she's unruly and willful, but she's always jealous. You don't even know that she's the laughingstock of the southern blue continent. If it wasn't for this marriage, she wouldn't have had the chance to see the light of day again." The ridicule in Peng Huang's words made Xiao Ho tighten his grip on the wine cup in his hand. He raised his eyebrows and the smile on his face disappeared. His eyes were ice cold. "Your Highness, you're so perfunctory in choosing the princess. In the future, don't mention this in front of others. Otherwise, if it falls into the ears of others, it will sow discord between the two countries." Peng Huang was stunned. He really didn't notice this point. But wasn't Xiao Ho a partner? Why should he care about this? However, Xiao Ho continued, "Also, the woman you're talking about is about to become the future mistress of this prince's manor. Your Highness, do you think it's appropriate to say this?" Peng Huang felt that he had misspoken. No man, no matter if he liked his wife or not, would allow others to insult her. This was a matter of a man's face. He suddenly felt that it was reasonable for Xiao to be angry. You're right, Princey. It's my fault. I take back my words. Come, let me toast you with this cup of wine. Take it as an apology for what I said just now. Although Pang Huang's temperament wasn't very good, the people around him were very loyal to him. The reason was that he was a principled person who would correct his mistakes. He was a person who would listen to advice. Even if the other party had offended him before, as long as the person had some merit, he would disregard the previous enmity and use them. He had a very clear principle of how to conduct himself, and use people who were virtuous. Xiao was a person with very strong self-control, but for him to lose his temper today, it was clear that Pang Huang had touched his bottom line. But at this time, Pang Huang's sincere apology made him quickly return to his usual self. Although there were still some fluctuations in his emotions, he had already concealed it. After all, they were all people who played with power. Although Pang Huang's actions couldn't calm his anger, as a crown prince, he was already giving face to him. Moreover, he found that such a flexible person would definitely achieve great things in the future. At this moment, they were still in a cooperative relationship, so he couldn't fall out with him. Therefore, he smiled as gently as usual. Your Highness, you're too serious. I was too sensitive. Take this cup of wine as my apology. Pang Huang couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He had already drunk that cup of wine and didn't stop him. Now he wanted to toast him. Didn't that mean he was the one who drank the whole time? He suddenly felt that the man in front of him who smiled as gently as the spring breeze was actually very scheming. He wasn't as kind and easy to bully as he looked on the surface. Pang Huang drank the wine in one gulp again. He faintly felt that Pang Zhijing was a taboo topic for Xiao. He also remembered what he had said before. This princess was the worst of the Nansong imperial family. Now that she was about to become the princess consort, Pang Huang didn't have the face to mention this topic again. Therefore, he changed the topic. Has there been any movement on Xiao Su's side recently? Recently, he had been busy treating his injuries in bed, and didn't have much energy to understand the Sichuan situation in the capital. In addition, some things had happened in the imperial family, so he couldn't even take care of himself. Xiao nodded. Originally, there wasn't anything important. However, in the past 2 days, news came from the palace. Xiao Su plans to hand over his military power and return to his fief. He won't return to the capital. Pang Huang said in disbelief. He's actually handing over such a fat piece of meat? Doesn't he know what it means to have military power? That's half of the country's power. Why is he so stubborn? Moreover, shouldn't you be preparing to appoint an heir to the throne? To leave at such a crucial time, I really don't understand what's going on in his head. He's never done things according to common sense. Normal people can't guess what he's thinking. Xiao remembered that ever since he was young, he had never been able to understand the thoughts of this imperial brother of his. Other people did their best to seize power, but he treated power like dirt and never cared about it. Other people did their best to curry favor with imperial father, but he hid as far away as he could. If he could not return, he would not return. This was also the reason why he had rarely appeared in the capital all these years. But what did this have to do with him? No matter what he did, he had to get rid of him. Moreover, he couldn't let him die so easily. Otherwise, in these 10 years, he would have plenty of opportunities to send him to hell. It was just that he didn't want him to die so easily. Pang Huang noticed his uncertain expression and rubbed his nose thoughtfully. Now that he's leaving the capital, won't our future plans be ruined? Pang Huang asked. Xiao sneered. Imperial father hasn't agreed yet. Perhaps things will take a turn for the better. Moreover, I won't let him leave so easily. Otherwise, how can this play go on without a main character? Pang Huang felt a flash of hatred in his eyes as he spoke. Although it disappeared quickly, he still caught it. He secretly pondered what kind of deep hatred there was between Xiao and Xiao Su. When the time came, he would ask his subordinates to investigate. Okay, Princey, if you need my cooperation, just let me know. This time, I brought a lot of people. I'm not afraid of not having enough people. Pang Huang said generously. Xiao smiled and agreed. Okay, your highness is very straightforward. Come, let me toast you. Next, Xiao toasted Pang Huang very enthusiastically. After a few rounds, Pang Huang was already drunk. Before Xiao came, Pang Huang had already drunk a lot. In addition, he had urged him to drink cup after cup. Soon, Pang Huang couldn't take the alcohol anymore. This wine was very strong and had a strong aftertaste. Looking at Pang Huang lying on the table, Xiao thought that when he woke up tomorrow, he would have a splitting headache. Xiao sneered. This was a punishment for insulting little rascal just now. He put down the wine cup, got up and walked back the way he came. As for the wine cup on the table, after a gust of wind, a crack suddenly appeared on the body of the cup. Then with a "pa" sound, it broke into pieces. Chapter 1255. At this time, the Sichuan emperor had already rushed to Xiao Ran's palace. As soon as he entered the inner hall, he saw all the imperial physicians surrounding the bed. When they heard the words, "Your Majesty is here," they immediately dispersed and knelt down to salute. The Sichuan emperor didn't care about this at all. He immediately asked, "How is the fourth prince?" The fourth prince vomited blood because of his heart disease. But it's good that he vomited blood. Now that the fourth prince has woken up, Your Majesty can visit him. Imperial Physician Li, the most senior imperial physician in the Imperial Academy of Medicine, stood out to answer on behalf of the emperor. The Sichuan emperor immediately breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, Consort Yu arrived. She looked very flustered and anxious. When she saw the Sichuan emperor, she immediately walked over. "Your Majesty, how is Ranner?" "I rushed over as soon as I heard that he vomited blood." The Sichuan emperor patted her trembling hand and comforted her. The imperial physician said that he has woken up. At this time, Imperial Physician Li faced the two of them and said, Your Majesty, although the fourth prince is fine today, his heart disease still needs to be cured. If it goes on like this, no matter how good the fourth prince's body is, he won't be able to withstand such torment. So Your Majesty, please persuade the fourth prince to relax and not think too much. Otherwise, even if he takes too much medicine, it will be useless. Imperial Physician Li was very important in the Imperial Academy of Medicine. His medical skills were recognized by the Sichuan emperor and the imperial concubines. Now that they heard what he said, they understood the seriousness of the matter. Consort Yu was on the verge of collapsing. She had been highly stressed these 2 days and hadn't had much rest. Her face suddenly turned pale. Seeing this, the Sichuan emperor immediately ordered people to help her to the side. Imperial Physician Li also immediately stepped forward to check her pulse. After a while, Imperial Physician Li withdrew his hand and turned to the Sichuan emperor, saying, Your Majesty, the imperial concubine is fine. She's just overworked and tense. Once her mood swings, she'll feel dizzy. She'll be fine after 2 days of rest. Sichuan emperor nodded and turned to hold Consort Yu's hand. He looked into her eyes and said, I will take care of Ranner's matters. I guarantee that he will be cured. So you can rest assured and go back to rest. If you collapse, what will happen to Ranner in the future? With Sichuan emperor's words, Consort Yu quickly perked up. She nodded and tightly grasped Sichuan emperor's hand. Tears slowly flowed down her cheeks. Then I'll rely on Your Majesty. When a beauty shed tears, I felt pity for her. In addition, showing weakness and dependence at the right time would inflate a man's pity and desire to protect. This was one of the reasons why Consort Yu was able to stand alone in the harem. Sichuan emperor rubbed the back of her hand and sent someone to escort her back to the Moon Palace. At this moment, eunuch Xiao had already cleared everyone away. Only the West Xian emperor and Xiao Ran, who was lying on the bed, remained in the palace. Sichuan emperor stood in the center of the palace and pondered for a while. Then he slowly walked to the bed and sat down. Xiao Ran heard the noise and slowly opened his eyes. He looked very weak. He looked at his father with dim eyes and said weakly, Imperial father, I am useless. I've made you worry. I am too unfilial. Sichuan emperor listened to his self-blame and said, You also know that you're useless and unfilial? Xiao Ran nodded with a gloomy expression. Then do you know where you're useless? Where are you unfilial? Szechuan Emperor asked. Xiao Ran was stunned. Then he said, Szechuan Emperor didn't wait for his reply and continued. You're useless because you know what you want, but you don't fight for it. You hide in your room like a coward. You're unfilial because of your cowardice. You don't eat or drink because of a woman. You've made imperial father and your imperial mother worried endlessly. At this point, the Wuxian Emperor sighed softly. Ran, you're good at everything, but you're not decisive enough. You're overcautious and overcautious. Sometimes, you just need to have the courage to press forward and cut off all means of retreat. Do you understand? Xiao Ran lowered his eyes. He felt that his imperial father's words were very reasonable. He was just too weak. Kind people are bullied, and kind horses are ridden. If you only think about others and think about many things, but don't dare to take action, then you can only look up to others' happiness. You'll be restless and yearning for it. It's like a mirage tempting people who get lost in the desert. You can see it but you can't touch it. The Xixian Emperor said somewhat resentfully. His son was good in every way, except that he was not ruthless enough or tough enough. He was too different from the Xixian Emperor of the past. The more Xiao Ran listened, the more he felt that he was useless and couldn't do anything well. Just as he was feeling very depressed, he suddenly heard his imperial father speak. Ranner, imperial father wants to ask you a question. Do you really like Chu Qingyan that much? Xiao Ran abruptly raised his head and looked at his imperial father's serious face. He was a bit nervous, but at this moment, a voice in his heart urged him to tell the truth. Thus he nodded heavily. I am sincere about Qingyan. Good. Szechuan Emperor nodded. Xiao Ran was a bit confused by his imperial father's sudden mention of this topic. He was even more confused when he saw his imperial father's reaction. He hesitated for a moment before asking, Imperial father, what do you mean? Szechuan Emperor stared at him, revealing an unreadable emotion. If you really want Chu Qingyan, then imperial father can agree to your previous request. Really? Xiao Ran was so excited that he immediately sat up on the bed. However, because he used too much strength, he couldn't stop coughing. Szechuan Emperor saw him like this and shook his head even more helplessly. He took a pillow and placed it behind his back for him to lean on to help him breathe. You, when will you change this bad habit? Xiao Ran said apologetically. Because what imperial father said made I too excited and shocked. He paused and carefully looked at his imperial father's expression and asked, Then what imperial father said just now, is it true? Szechuan Emperor originally wanted to scare him, but when he saw his bloodshot eyes and sickly face, he couldn't bear to. He could only say, Yes, imperial father agrees to cancel the engagement between your eldest brother and Chu Qingyan. Xiao Ran couldn't restrain the joy in his heart. A smile bloomed on his face. Many thanks, imperial father. Imperial father really loves I too much. Thank you. Szechuan Emperor shook his head. This child, however, at this moment, Xiao Ran thought of something and looked worriedly at Szechuan Emperor. Imperial father, will this have a negative impact on you? You were the one who issued the imperial edict. If you take it back after 5 years, will the civil and military officials have any objections? How will you explain this to eldest brother? Isn't it too late to think of this now? Szechuan Emperor chuckled and shook his head. Xiao Ran rubbed his nose and smiled somewhat childishly. At this moment, Szechuan Emperor slowly restrained his expression and said to him coldly, Of course, imperial father won't announce this matter personally. Instead, I will have your eldest brother bring it up himself. Chapter 1256. Xiao Ran blinked and asked curiously, Then why did imperial father ask imperial brother to bring it up? Szechuan Emperor smiled mysteriously. You don't need to know. You only need to know that imperial father will help you achieve your wish. Although imperial father didn't tell him, Xiao Ran cared more about the time when the engagement was annulled, so he quickly put it to the back of his mind. He couldn't suppress his joy. Seeing his youngest son grinning foolishly, Szechuan Emperor felt the need to remind him. He said in a cold and solemn tone, Ranner, imperial father doesn't object to you taking Chu Qingyan into the palace in the future. But imperial father says that you will have a concubine. Although the position of imperial concubine is still available, imperial father doesn't allow you to put Chu Qingyan above the position of imperial concubine. Xiao Ran was stunned. Why? Seeing his reaction, Sichuan Emperor knew that he was too naive. He said with a serious face, "You have a bright future ahead of you. You still have a long way to go. Your position of imperial concubine should be reserved for someone who can help you greatly in the future, or her family. It's the same for your position of concubine. But Chu Qingyan doesn't meet these conditions." But Qingyan is very talented, smart, and skilled in martial arts. She's a very outstanding girl. Xiao Ran couldn't help but argue for her. Sichuan Emperor shook his head and said, "As your future imperial concubine or concubine, she doesn't need to be particularly outstanding. She only needs to have a strong family, a strong network of connections, and a good temperament to help her husband and raise her children. They only need to take care of you and care for you when you're busy and tired. That's enough." He thought of Chu Qingyan and the intelligence report he read today. He said in a calm tone, "A woman's virtue is to have no talent. Even if Chu Qingyan is talented, the imperial concubine can't interfere in politics. You have many guards and secret guards around you. You don't need her to do anything if you encounter danger." Xiao Ran didn't agree with imperial father's words, but he couldn't find a reason to refute. Moreover, his attention had shifted to other things. "Imperial father, you just said that the imperial concubine can't interfere in politics?" Hearing his youngest son's surprised tone, Sichuan Emperor knew that he had let it slip. But it was only a matter of time. It was better to tell him early so he could be prepared. Then he wouldn't have to be immersed in his feelings. Thus he nodded and said in a serious tone, "You are imperial father's chosen successor, so you can't decide on your own marriage. Imperial father can only satisfy your needs to the greatest extent. Therefore, Chu Qingyan can't be the Empress Dowager in the future. She can be one of the 4 consorts. You can decide where you want her to be. Imperial father won't interfere." Xiao Ran's eyes widened. Even though his lady mother had always instilled in him to work hard and inherit the throne, he always felt that it was an unattainable goal. Now that he heard imperial father's words, he couldn't believe it. But isn't there still eldest brother? He is the legitimate eldest son. His youngest son was still as muddle-headed as ever. Even after so many years, he still did not understand how much effort the West Xiandarch had put into nurturing him. The West Xiandarch was also afraid that his youngest son would not be able to wrap his head around Chu Qingyan's matter, and insist on doing so. The West Xiandarch pondered for a moment. Since the topic had reached this point, there was nothing to hide anymore. "Do you know why imperial father bestowed a marriage between your eldest brother and Chu Qingyan?" asked Sichuan Emperor. Xiao Ran calmed his heart and thought carefully. Then he raised his head and replied, "It seems to be because imperial grandfather divined that eldest brother would be in trouble, and needed a woman to help him overcome the tribulation. In the end he chose Qingyan." Sichuan Emperor shook his head. Xiao Ran was shocked. Could there be other reasons? Sichuan Emperor nodded. There was a strange smile at the corner of his mouth, as if he was mocking and proud. "Your imperial grandfather was just making things up. None of his divinations were accurate. But why didn't imperial father stop your imperial grandfather and help him issue that imperial edict? It wasn't because he was pestered to the point of no return. It was because imperial father needed someone to block your eldest brother's drive. At that time, he was invincible. Many of the powers in the court were leaning towards the left prime minister's faction. In order to balance the powers, imperial father listened to your imperial grandfather's absurd suggestion and chose the Chu family, which had no foundation and was gradually declining." Xiao Ran was shocked beyond words. At this moment he heard his imperial father continue. "As your eldest brother's first consort, Chu Qingyan suppressed your eldest brother's power to a certain extent. If he wants to be an emperor, he must have 3 powerful forces. The first is his own family. The second is the party that supports him in the court. The third is the support from the emperor's harem. When Chu Qingyan was betrothed to your eldest brother, the shrewd people in the court sensed that imperial father didn't think highly of this prince. Because imperial father cut off his most powerful source of power in the future, They needed to consider whether they should continue to support your eldest brother. Over the past 5 years, Imperial Father has secretly nurtured a force for you, so that you can walk a smoother path in the future. At this moment, Xiao Ran was still digesting the Sichuan Emperor's words. He felt that everything was beyond his expectations. Sichuan Emperor lightly patted the back of his hand, then sighed and said, "Do you still remember when you were young? You asked Imperial Father why Imperial Father doted on your Imperial Mother so much. But she wasn't the Empress?" Xiao Ran was startled. Then he said somewhat embarrassedly, "I was young at that time. Children's words carry no harm. Imperial Father, please don't take it to heart." The Sichuan Emperor smiled gently and said, "It doesn't matter. But now Imperial Father can tell you the reason. When Imperial Father was still a prince, his power wasn't strong enough. He needed a strong external aid. So, Imperial Father chose the Liang family and let your mother down." Speaking of this, the Sichuan Emperor revealed a faint helplessness. So when you want to achieve great things, you have to make sacrifices and feel indebted. You can't put your preferences on the table. You have to accept a lot of things you don't want, because these things can help you get what you want. So those who want to achieve great things don't care about trifles. Xiao Ran suddenly felt that the Imperial Father in front of him seemed to have changed a lot. His eyes were filled with pain as he said, "Imperial Father, you are a very capable and competent emperor." The Sichuan Emperor smiled and said self-deprecatingly, "But Imperial Father is not a good husband or a good father." Then he stopped smiling and said with emotion, "But there is one thing. The more you care about someone, the more you can't put them in a dangerous position. For example, the position of the emperor in the palace is tedious and enviable. So after all these years, Imperial Father has become powerful enough. Your grandfather's faction also has an unshakable position in the imperial court. That's why Imperial Father didn't support your mother to be the empress." Xiao Ran nodded. The position of the emperor in the palace was indeed too difficult and tiring. The Sichuan Emperor patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, "If you want to get what you want, you have to be ruthless to yourself. However, only when you sit in the highest position can you get what you want most." Xiao Ran pursed his lips and thought of Qin Yan. If he wanted her to stay by his side forever, he had to be like Imperial Father. He had to make himself stronger and stronger, until no one could shake him. Chapter 1257. After the Sichuan Emperor left, the palace regained its silence. Xiao Ran sat on the bed with his hands folded on top of the quilt. He stared blankly at an unknown place, but his mind was replaying the words his father had said before he left. "Rana, you are too kind. This is both a strength and a fatal weakness. So from today onwards, you have to think more about your own interests. Don't always think about others. If you want something, fight for it. You have the capital and the ability. Sometimes it is necessary to use some means. As long as you can achieve your goal, the process is not important. So I said this to you today, because I want you to know the heavy responsibility on your shoulders. So in the future you have to consciously adjust your attitude. You are different from everyone else. You will be the ruler of the entire country in the future. You have to set your sights further, and not just focus on what is in front of you. Kill Buddha if you meet Buddha. Kill Buddha if you meet God if you meet God. Everyone who stands in your way must be eliminated." Xiao Ran slowly digested the Sichuan Emperor's words. Because his father had promised him that he would let him take Qin Yan into the palace, and because his father had been the person he had respected the most since he was a child, he believed what his father had said today without a doubt. His previous depression and loneliness were slowly swept away. His eyes shone with an amazing light, and his aura changed. Those who were familiar with him would find that there was a sharp look in his eyes, as if he was a tiger cub that had just been enlightened and had its own sharp claws. If anyone stood in his way, he would get rid of them all. At this time, the Sichuan Emperor was on his way back. "Your Majesty, do you need a palanquin?" Eunuch Qiao asked. The Sichuan Emperor waved his hand. "No need. It's good to take a walk." "Yes. Qiao Ji, do you think Ranner can understand what I mean?" The Sichuan emperor looked at the distant horizon. The sky was clear and the clouds were drifting. Xiao was slightly stunned. When the emperor said those words to the fourth prince in the palace, he was beside him. At that time, he wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. Because every word he heard was about the secrets of the royal family, about the future of the Sichuan emperor, and the selection of the crown prince. If it were to spread, any word could cause turmoil in the court. Eunuch Xiao lowered his head slightly and said with certainty, "I think the fourth prince is very smart. He should be able to understand. Love could make a person grow, but it could also make a person fall." He couldn't guess what the fourth prince would become, but when he left the palace, he saw that the fourth prince's aura had changed. He didn't know what kind of change this would bring, good or bad, but he couldn't help but feel worried for His Royal Highness. The emperor was a man of his words. When he received the news today, he was extremely angry about Chu Qingyan's actions in Lianqing and on the battlefield. He believed that the King of England could deceive his superiors and his subordinates, so he would definitely do something disgraceful, or even rebel in the future. Moreover, the emperor had been very wary of the King of England since this morning, and kept an eye on him at all times. Now that this had happened, it was like the seeds that had been planted had finally sprouted. Then it was time to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Eunuch Xiao sighed softly in his heart. In fact, His Royal Highness shouldn't have returned to the capital. He should have gone far away. "Xiaoji, do you know why I want to break off the engagement between the two of them?" The Sichuan emperor's unexpected words made Eunuch Xiao very confused. "I don't know." A gust of wind blew and lifted the corner of the dragon robe. The flying dragon on the robe seemed to be alive as it shuttled through the clouds. Its sharp eyes seemed to be looking down at the people below. It was cold and majestic, but also ferocious and cruel, making people not dare to look directly at it. Chu Qingyan was able to help Su with strategizing and leading the army in battle. It proves that she is a very courageous woman. In Sichuan, there are few women like her. She is good at both civil and military affairs and has the demeanor of a general. Ranner is not decisive enough and lacks someone to guide him. Chu Qingyan is just right for the job. Although he couldn't tolerate Chu Qingyan's crime of deceiving the emperor, he appreciated her talent. Moreover, Ranner liked her very much. If she could stay by Ranner's side and help him, then he would be able to hand over the country to him. As the emperor's father, he would be at ease. This was also the reason why he didn't immediately condemn the two of them at the beginning. When he betrothed Chu Qingyan to Su, he didn't find anything special about this woman. Now he realized that keeping her by Su's side would be the biggest disaster. Although it wasn't very kind of him to do this, he had to do it for the sake of Sichuan's country, and for Ranner. Eunuch Xiao waited for a long time after he finished speaking, but His Majesty didn't answer. He couldn't help but look up. At this time, Sichuan Emperor said faintly, "You don't need to know the answer." Eunuch Xiao immediately lowered his head. "Yes. Let's go back to the palace." His bright yellow figure gradually disappeared into the distance. In the study of Prince Yi's estate, Xiao Ho was reviewing the account books that had recently been sent to him by the shops below. Because revenge required a lot of manpower and resources, he had many businesses under his control. The profits he earned were basically used to support his secret organization. Soldiers were trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single day. He looked at the thick pile of account books in front of him, and suddenly thought of Pang Zhijing's silly smile. He couldn't help but have an idea. Didn't this little rascal like money? I'll let her do as much as she wants. When she enters the prince's estate, I'll let her take care of these businesses. He could even imagine her crying face when she came to him. He could not help but curl his lips slightly. With that thought, his head that had been slightly dizzy from drinking earlier immediately cleared up. He was no longer as tired as before. Just when he was about to continue reviewing the account books, one of the spies he had sent out returned to the estate and appeared before him. "What's the matter?" Xiao Ho placed down the book in his hand and looked at his subordinate with a slight frown. Normally, they would not show themselves so easily unless it was something major, just to avoid being discovered. "Yahweh, the weapons we secretly forged in Qingyang City have been exposed." An official led a group of people to conduct a routine inspection, and accidentally found our items. Right now, all of the craftsmen have been locked up in prison and are currently being interrogated. I wonder if they'll keep their mouths shut, the spy said with some worry. Xiao was surprised. If they could even be discovered like this, just what were the craftsmen doing down there? The officials in Qingyang City are all father's people. They're completely impenetrable, and we can't use their connections. If we're discovered, it'll be extremely bad for us. The spy was rather frantic. Yahweh, what do we do now? Have the people under Luo Qingyang personally infiltrate the prison of Qingyang with people. You have to eliminate them completely. However, be careful not to be discovered. Xiao ordered coldly. The spy immediately nodded and retreated. If this matter was not handled properly, everything he had done in the past few years would probably be exposed. Xiao's eyes were like ink on the table, so thick that they refused to dissolve. Chapter 1258. Someone barged into the King of England's residence early in the morning. I heard that Yanluo is back. Where is she? The moment Hua Xiaoli entered the courtyard, she began to look left and right. Only when Chu Qingyan opened the door and leaned against the doorframe, looking at her coldly, did Hua Xiaoli run over and repeat her actions. Chu Qingyan looked at her friend, who was extremely excited, and said faintly, "You're the only one who would disturb someone's sleep early in the morning." Hua Xiaoli chuckled. I was just too excited when I heard that Yanluo was back. I couldn't control myself. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. I didn't see you this excited when you saw me previously. It seems like you're treating me differently. At this moment, Hua Luo rubbed her nose in her sleeves as a crafty glint flashed across her eyes. She moved closer to Chu Qingyan and whispered, "You don't know, but I've been so busy recently. You have your big ice cube protecting you, so I can't touch you. But Yanluo is here, and she can share some of my burden. How can I not be excited? I'm dying of laughter when I think about it." I see. I was wondering why you were so nice to me all of a sudden. It turns out that you've set up a trap for me to jump into. Hua Xiaoli, you've become bolder recently. Aren't you worried that you won't be able to laugh after I insert a needle into your body? A voice came from the side, carrying with it an eerie chill. She shuddered in her sleeves and slowly turned around. The corners of her mouth curled up as she smiled at the newcomer. "Yanluo, you're finally back. I've missed you so much. I think you're trying to drag me down with you." Cheng Yanluo walked out slowly and snorted at Hua Xiaoli. Hua Xiaoli quickly went up to her and tried to please her. Chu Qingyan smiled at the two of them. "Since you're up so early, why don't we have breakfast together?" "Okay. No problem. I'm starving. You deserve it." The three of them sat down together. Xining and Jasper began to serve the dishes. "Yanluo, you look so pleased with yourself. Is something good about to happen?" Hua Xiao's eyes were sharp. She could tell at a glance that she was different from before. Qing Yanluo glanced at her. "You're indeed a good businesswoman. You're so observant." "Of course. Otherwise, how could this lady have a foothold in this brothel?" "You speak as if you're not a profiteer." Are you planning to go against me today?" Chu Qingyan couldn't help but feel amused as she listened to their battle of words. It had been a long time since she last saw such a scene. After arguing for a while, Hua Xiao turned to Chu Qingyan and said, "Aren't you leaving the capital for Lianqing in 2 days? I found that your fief is also a great business opportunity. When the time comes, we can open a few branches there and try to spread our products all over the country." Before Chu Qingyan could say anything, Cheng Yanluo asked in surprise, "You're going back to Lianqing?" "Yes, the capital isn't suitable for living here. Big Ice Cube and I plan to leave after a few days when he's relieved of his burden." Chu Qingyan nodded. "If I'd known, Murong and I would have returned to our fief directly. Now we have to hurry." "Oh my God!" Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but wail. "It's no big deal. You can stay and help me." Hua Xiao winked at her and tried her best to invite her. "Ugly. I refuse." Cheng Yanluo crossed her chest. Hua Xiao snorted loudly. After listening to their bickering, Chu Qingyan said to her good friend, "Yanluo, I'm very surprised that you're back this time. I happen to have a friend who has some issues with her body. When she comes back, You can help her take a look and see what's wrong with her. Qing Yanluo agreed readily. No problem. Recently, I've only been looking at Morong, and I'm a little tired of looking at beautiful women. I'm looking for a beauty to please my eyes. Chu Qingyan burst into laughter and teased. Are you treating someone's illness or admiring a beauty? Aren't you afraid that Ethereal will come and take you away? He wouldn't dare. Qing Yanluo smacked the table lightly and snorted. Xiao blinked when she saw this scene. Looks like Ethereal is going to marry a tigress in the future. Xiao, if you don't want to live anymore, I'll take out my silver needles at any moment, Qing Yanluo threatened. Xiao stuck her tongue out at her fearlessly. Qing Yanluo stood up and reached out to her. Xiao dodged her hand and immediately ran toward the courtyard. Qing Yanluo was not to be outdone and immediately chased after her. Thus, the two of them started a chase in the courtyard. Chu Qingyan smiled as she stirred the porridge in her bowl with a spoon. As she listened to the laughter outside, she felt that the years were peaceful. How great would it be if her life could be as carefree and happy as this in the future? Later on, she realized that before all the disasters came, these peaceful times were worth cherishing and reminiscing. In Prince Yi's estate. Lord, we've dealt with those craftsmen. And we did it very cleanly, the subordinate reported as he knelt on the ground. Xiao nodded. You did well. However, after entering the prison last night, I discovered that there's still one craftsman on the list who hasn't been caught. I've already sent people to search for him. As long as he's still in Qingyang City, we'll definitely find him, the subordinate continued. With that, Xiao's expression became rather unsightly. I'm not afraid of not being able to find him. I'm just afraid that someone else will find him before us. This will be extremely disadvantageous for us. Find that craftsman before the soldiers as soon as possible. Don't make any mistakes. Yes, sir. The subordinate immediately backed off. Just as Xiao's head ached over this matter, a pair of hands suddenly appeared from behind him, covering his eyes. Afterwards, she pinched his throat and said, "Guess who I am?" The ice-cold hands pressed against his eyes, taking away the annoyance in his head. It suddenly stabilized his emotions. Somewhere she could not see, he curled the corner of his lips slightly. A dumb and stupid cat. Who's dumb and stupid? Pang Zhijing broke down and grumbled unhappily. Only after saying that did she return to her senses. She released her hands while mumbling. I fell for it. You sure are sly. That's because you couldn't keep your cool. You can't blame anyone else. Xiao smiled gently. She curled her lips. If it were not for the fact that she saw him sitting there in a bad mood when she first came in, she would never have done something so stupid to make him happy. Afterwards, she thought of something and mentioned it in a seemingly casual manner. I saw a few unfamiliar girls in the king's estate earlier. They're quite pretty. Who are they? In the beginning, Xiao didn't understand. It wasn't until she finished speaking that he remembered that he was going to give them to a few officials. The words of explanation spun around in his mouth, but he didn't say it because it wasn't suitable for her to know about these things. He raised an eyebrow and said indifferently, "That's not something you should concern yourself with." That made her heart clench, as if several needles had pierced her heart. Chapter 1259. Pang Zhijing lowered her eyes. From an angle that Xiao couldn't see, her lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. Sure enough, she was still an insignificant person drifting outside of his world. Even though they had been getting along so well recently, it was useless. He could play with her today, and he could laugh and talk with other women tomorrow. In this era, the last thing that men lacked was women. Why did she have to humiliate herself here? She suddenly felt that everything here was suffocating. She didn't want to stay any longer. Thus she said calmly, "I'm leaving." She turned to leave as soon as she finished speaking, but her wrist was grabbed by someone the moment she took a step. Xiao couldn't see her face clearly, but he keenly sensed that something was wrong with her mood. He asked in confusion, "You just arrived and you're already leaving. Where are you going?" "Someone invited me for tea." Before she came, Qingyan had sent someone to inform her that there was a friend who wanted her to meet. However, she missed him a little, so she came to Prince Yi's residence first. They had originally arranged to meet in the afternoon. But now she didn't want to stay here to freeload lunch, much less accompany him. Upon hearing this, Xiao Ho's expression turned slightly cold. Is it Yu Qingxi? Recently his men had been reacting. Yu Qingxi's men had been keeping an eye on the relay station. He didn't need to think to know that he was watching her. He couldn't help but recall that day on the street. His tone and demeanor towards her were so ambiguous. His heart instantly felt uncomfortable. Pang Zhijing chuckled and said, "What does it have to do with you who I do what with?" Her nonchalant tone displeased him. His expression immediately turned cold as he said, "Didn't I tell you not to get close to him? He's not who you think he is. Don't tell me you've forgotten about the consecutive assassinations last time? Being with him is no different from being a lamb in a tiger's den." At this moment, she was in a very irritable mood. When she heard his questioning voice, Pang Zhijing felt a nameless fire erupt from her heart. She fiercely flung his hand away. With her back still facing him, she said, "That's my business. You don't have to interfere." Her entire body was filled with resistance towards him. Xiao Ho narrowed his eyes, and his tone became even more impolite. "Could it be that you've rekindled your old feelings for him, and forgotten the pain after the scar healed? I didn't expect you to be such a person. If I had known earlier, I would have left you there to fend for yourself. It would have been much better than shamelessly going up there now." Pang Zhijing suddenly turned around. Her heart was full of anger, but when she saw his mocking expression, it was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her head. She suddenly felt that there was no point in arguing. "Yes, I've forgotten the pain after the scar healed. I should have left myself to fend for myself. You can think whatever you want. I hate you." After saying that, she turned around and ran away. The tears in her eyes couldn't stop flowing down. Since he had such a bad impression of her, she didn't want him to see her in her worst state. She didn't want him to laugh at her. Yes, she had forgotten the pain after the wound healed. His words in the imperial palace had hurt her deeply, but whenever he treated her well, she couldn't help but approach him. That's right. Back then, she should have fended for herself and not become a burden to anyone else. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a situation today. She wiped her tears and ran out of the study. Her reaction was completely out of his expectations. By the time he reacted, she was already at the door. His body subconsciously wanted to chase after her, but he suddenly caught a glimpse of the tears in the corner of her eyes. He suddenly froze and then immediately chased after her. But when he reached the door, Lin Jiangdong appeared in front of him. "Lord, things are not good," Lin Jiangdong said in a grave tone. With this interruption, she had already run far away. It was too late for him to chase after her. Even if he caught up, he didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only watch her leave the courtyard and disappear. He withdrew his gaze and suppressed the chaotic emotions in his heart. He looked at Lin Jiangdong. "Come in and talk." The two of them returned to the study. Lin Jiangdong said eagerly, "Your Highness, the Emperor has heard about your visit to the King of England's estate 2 days ago. Now he's ordered people to investigate your relationship with Xiao Su. He seems to be worried about you working together." Xiao Ho fell silent with that. Afterwards he sneered softly, "This old fox is still so sensitive. As long as he comes across anything related to Xiao Su, he'll dig deep into the ground to investigate it." Lin Jiangdong said worriedly, "It's exactly because of that I'm worried that he'll discover our secrets during the investigation. Although we've always done a very good job of keeping secrets, we can't be too careful. Although the discovery of the incident in Qingyang was an accident, didn't it also prove this point?" The strategist's analysis was not without reason. "Then do you have any ideas, sir?" Xiao Ho raised his head and looked at him. After some thought, Lin Jiangdong said, "The crux of this matter lies in your relationship with Xiao Su. His Majesty suspects that the two of you are conspiring together. All those in power are like that, afraid that their subordinates will collude with each other. As a result, as long as you cut ties with Xiao Su, His Majesty's suspicions can be erased, and we can safely avoid this matter." After hearing that, Xiao Ho leaned back in his chair with a rather sunken face. He tapped the table gently with his fingers as if he was thinking about something. His father's fear of Xiao Su increased with each passing day. He could not drag him into this, or he would be completely wiped out when the time came. All right. Send someone to send a message to Prince Pang. Tell him that I have something important to discuss with him, so I want to see him right now. Xiao Ho made a prompt decision and ordered. When Lin Jiangdong saw this, he knew that Lord already had a plan in mind. He couldn't help but feel happy. As expected, he did not follow the wrong person. Xiao Ho was a person with great talent, and could take on great responsibilities. Lin Jiangdong received the order, and was about to leave when Xiao Ho suddenly called out to him. Later, send someone to investigate where the princess went today. You must ensure her safety. Although he was disappointed that she still could not forget Yu Qingxi, and felt an inexplicable anger, when he thought of the tears at the corners of her eyes just now, he couldn't help but subconsciously give this order. Lin Jiangdong was slightly surprised. This disaster that had come out of nowhere was all because of Pang Zhijing. If it weren't for her poison, Lord would not have gone to visit Xiao Su. He would also not have entered the Sichuan Emperor's line of sight, and aroused his suspicions. She didn't think that Lord would still be concerned about her at this moment. Lin Jiangdong thought for a bit, then said, Lord, although this one knows that some words should not be said, since they are your private matters, this one feels that if your private matters have already involved official matters, then it is still necessary to remind you. Xiao Ho didn't know what he wanted to say, so he calmly looked at him. The princess's temperament and appearance are indeed something that few girls in the capital can compare to. But it's not like there aren't any girls like her. This one wants to advise Lord not to indulge too deeply. Otherwise, you won't be able to pull yourself away in the future, and it will affect the grand plan. This one has said enough. Your Highness should think about it carefully. Xiao Ho froze on the spot. Even after Lin Jiangdong left, he still didn't change his posture. Was that so? He had already indulged too deeply? That shouldn't be the case. Yes, he just felt that she was very amusing and interesting. That was all. He wouldn't indulge, and it definitely wouldn't affect the grand plan. He said this to himself in his heart. Chapter 1260. After Pang Zhijing left Prince Yi's estate, she got into the carriage and cried all the way back to the relay station. Luer didn't dare to ask her what happened. She could only comfort her quietly, but it was of no use. When she reached her room, Pang Zhijing lay on the table and continued to cry. She was heartbroken. Princess, don't be sad. Your eyes will be uncomfortable if you cry for too long. Luer patted her back gently, afraid that she would choke. Pang Zhijing cried even harder. Luer, you don't understand. My heart hurts so much. Princess, don't cry. Luer wants to cry with you. Luer sobbed with reddened eyes. Pang Zhijing's tears kept flowing. She said in an incomparably sorrowful voice, Luer, you said he was fierce to me. He treated me so badly. Why do I still like him so much? Are you talking about Lord Yi? Luer asked with widened eyes. Who else could it be? That scum Yu Qingxi is nothing. I must be crazy if I shed half a tear for him. She snorted. Luer quickly comforted her furious master. Then why don't you explain it to Lord and let him know your feelings? I think Lord cares about you too. Cares? She laughed bitterly. Her throat was filled with bitterness. No, he doesn't have feelings in his life now. He only sees hatred in his eyes. His heart is sealed. I can't open the door in his heart. I was rejected by him from the start. If I explain it to him, I'll just be asking for humiliation. He already said it so bluntly back then. Why did she have to ask for a snub? If a guy really liked a girl, he wouldn't wait for her to make the first move. He would think of ways to let her know his feelings. She felt that in Xiao Ho's life, there was no such thing as making the first move. You'll never see hope when you're with someone like him. When she thought of this, she slowly straightened up. She wiped her tears and thought absent-mindedly. She had already decided to leave. Why did she care so much about his attitude towards her? Back then, she had told herself that in the remaining time, she should properly bid farewell to her first crush without leaving any regrets. But the closer she got to him, the more she couldn't help but be drawn in. His heart wanted to pull away. But the more he indulged, the more reluctant he was to do so. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. Back then, she had spoken so confidently to Qingyan. If this place didn't want her, there would be a place for her. If this person didn't love her, there would be someone who loved her. But now he realized that liking someone might only take a second or a glance, but forgetting someone would take a long time, or even a lifetime. It was easy to lose one's heart, but difficult to forget. She suddenly smiled, but her eyes were filled with sorrow. Lu'er, who was at the side, saw her princess cry and then laugh. She could not help but worry. "Princess, are you all right?" Pang Zhijing shook her head and looked at Lu'er. She took her hand and said earnestly, "Lu'er, if you meet a man in the future before he falls in love with you, don't give your heart away. Love is actually like war. Whoever falls in love first will be the first to suffer a crushing defeat." This was the deepest realization of blood and tears that she had gained from this battle of unrequited love. Lu'er had never come into contact with these things, so she didn't quite understand. But she could hear the pain and sorrow in her princess's voice, and she couldn't help but feel sorry for her. "Princess, if you're still in pain, just cry it out. It'll hurt you if you keep it in." Pang Zhijing, who was still immersed in sorrow, couldn't help but smile. Under Lu'er's puzzled gaze, she shook her head and wiped her tears. Lu'er, you were the one who told me not to cry. Now, you're the one who's telling me to cry a little longer. Why do you change your mind so easily?" Lu'er looked wronged. "This servant saw that you were still in pain. Do you feel better now?" Pang Zhijing sniffled. Although the sadness in her eyes was still there, her mood was much better than before. "Cry a little and vent your feelings. That's about it. One can't always be immersed in the worry of personal gains and losses. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the beautiful scenery around you. Don't worry, time heals many things. It might leave a scar, but it won't hurt anymore." She should stop when it came to Xiao. Parting would come one day. She had to be prepared to leave at any time. Otherwise, she was afraid that when that day came, she would be caught off guard and unable to remain calm. She would be in an extremely sorry state. Lu'er was still young and didn't understand these things. But she realized that the princess now didn't have her usual playful and mischievous appearance. She was so mature and sensible that she felt a little unfamiliar. She felt that sometimes, the princess wasn't as ignorant of worldly affairs as she appeared to be. Perhaps she knew much more than others in her heart. It was just that the princess who occasionally revealed her true self made her feel sorry for her. "Lu'er, don't look at me like that. Otherwise, I'll think that I don't have long to live. All right, help me send someone to the King of England's residence to tell Qingyan that I'll go find her another time." At this moment, she didn't have the mood to see Qingyan anymore. Her eyes were so red and swollen. If she went, she would definitely worry. Lu'er nodded and went to give the order. At this moment, Xiao walked into the courtyard where Pang Huang lived. "What brings you here?" Pang Huang had just finished practicing his sword. His face was covered in sweat, and he was wiping his sword with a cloth in his hand. When he saw Xiao walking slowly towards him, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and ask. As the saying goes, one doesn't visit a temple without a reason. "I don't dare to disturb the crown prince's time. Today, I have something important to discuss with you." Xiao stood in front of him and smiled. Pang Huang smiled and praised. "I like your personality. Simple and direct. You don't lose the forthrightness of us grassland men." "Your Highness, you flatter me." Pang Huang put away his sword and handed it to his subordinate. He extended his hand and said, "All right, let's talk in the study. This way, please." "This way, Your Highness." At the same time, Yu Qingxi also received the news in the temporary imperial residence where the Nansong bridal party was staying. "My lord, the princess went to Prince Yi's residence today. She stayed for a while and left quickly. Her mood was different from before. When she left, she seemed to be crying and looked very sad. According to my understanding, she seemed to have quarreled with Prince Yi," the subordinate in charge of monitoring Pang Zhijing reported. Yu Qingxi laughed mockingly. "I knew it. With her unruly and willful personality, no one can stand her. It's only a matter of time before Xiao gets tired of her." "Then what should we do next?" the subordinate asked. Yu Qingxi pondered for a moment, and suddenly laughed sinisterly. Back then she schemed against Ro-er. This time, we'll give her a taste of her own medicine. Chapter 1261. When Chu Qingyan received the news from the relay station, she was a little surprised. She wondered if something had happened. She wanted to send someone to inquire about it, but she was afraid that she would attract attention at such a critical juncture, so she could only suppress her thoughts. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo, who was also in the room, asked doubtfully, "Is this the friend you wanted me to treat?" Chu Qingyan smiled and nodded. "That's right. She is a new friend that I made during this period of time. Although she is the princess of the southern blue continent, her personality is not bad. Her thoughts and values are very similar to mine. I believe that when you meet her, you will also like her." Cheng Yanluo nodded and sighed. "It's rare to see you so sure about someone. If there's a chance, I must see what kind of superhuman abilities this princess has to make you recommend her so much." Xiao, who was nibbling on a melon, looked up and said, "Although she doesn't have superhuman abilities, she's more unusual than that. I've heard some of her opinions. She's indeed a very unique girl." Cheng Yanluo rubbed her chin, interest in her eyes. "Then I must see her even more." Chu Qingyan chuckled. "You'll definitely have a chance." At this moment, Cheng Yanluo turned to Xiao, who had been burying her head in eating. She crossed her arms and raised her eyebrows. "Speaking of which, you've been freeloading here for the past 2 days. When are you going to stop? You've been strolling in front of me every day. Can't you find a place to stay and not stroll around under my nose?" Xiao finished the last piece of watermelon and leisurely wiped her mouth and fingers before looking at her. "In any case, I'll disappear from your sight when you agree to help me with the continuation of my business. I won't disturb you and your ethereal lovey-dovey." Cheng Yanluo felt a headache coming on. She had been everywhere for the past 2 days. If she was not eating at her and Morong's table, she would be watching her and Morong from the side. Moreover, she always looked at her with a sad expression, which made her feel uncomfortable. Even Morong had been asking her what was going on between her and Xiao these past 2 days. She simply had enough. "What if I don't agree?" Xiao shrugged. "Then I'll continue to disturb you." Okay. She raised her hands in surrender. "I promise you. I'll agree to anything you say. Is that okay?" Xiao immediately jumped over and pulled her away. "That's what you said. Come with me to the shop now." Cheng Yanluo turned around to look at Chu Qingyan with a pitiful and helpless expression on her face. Morong was her lifeline now. Who asked her to have her lifeline in her sleeve? She was too cunning. Indeed, all businessmen were cunning. Chu Qingyan watched as the two of them left. She shook her head and laughed. Because she wanted to open a branch, she was very short on manpower. Although Jin Ling was already here, he was still on his way. It would probably take half a month for him to meet up with Xiao. So before that, she had to find someone to share the burden. Due to the fact that she had to manage all the affairs of the prince's mansion, she had been swamped with work. Hence, she hadn't had the nerve to ask her to come along. Now that Yanluo had returned, she was the happiest person in the world. Hence, she had been thinking of ways to encourage Yanluo to help. "What are you laughing at?" A voice rang beside her ear. She turned around to look at the person and smiled. "Why are you back so early? I thought you would only be done in the evening." Xiao walked up to her and smiled. "I'm not made of iron. I have to slack off when I have to." Her eyes lit up. "Big Ice Cube, you're finally enlightened." Xiao looked at her helplessly. "This is all thanks to you. You've been nagging me all day." She laughed mischievously, then stood up and pushed him to sit on the chair. She tilted her head and said, "Have a seat. It's been hard on you. Come, I'll let you enjoy a free massage from me." As she spoke, she went around to his back and began to massage and knead him like a professional. Because she had a good grasp of his acupuncture points, she knew which areas could relieve fatigue. Hence, every stroke was precise. Xiao felt that the exhaustion from the past 2 days was slowly being soothed as he felt the right amount of strength. "Big Ice Cube, have things been going well recently?" she asked. Previously, When the Nansong envoy group had arrived, they had been tormenting them and making all sorts of demands. Later on, the subordinates couldn't take it anymore and reported to Big Ice Cube. Big Ice Cube had personally taken action, so those people didn't dare to make a sound anymore. This time she was also worried. Xiao Su said calmly, "This time, the bridal escort group was very well behaved. However, it made me even more worried." She was surprised. "What do you mean?" "This time, the person in charge of the bridal escort group is called Yu Qingxi. He's the only son of Nansong Prime Minister, and has already entered the imperial court as an official. The officials under him never came out after entering the imperial residence. I've never seen them before. However, I've seen that Yu Qingxi a few times. It's hard to judge his character, but he's overly modest." Xiao Su recalled the first time he met Yu Qingxi. He was different from the boorish Nansong men. Instead, he had a scholarly air and was very polite when he spoke and did things. However, strictly speaking, he was a little perfunctory. A few officials from the Ministry of Rites who were in charge of the marriage had told him that after these people arrived, they didn't seem to care much about their princess's marriage. As long as it was decided by the Ministry of Rites, they didn't have any objections. Xiao Su couldn't help but suspect their purpose in coming here. After listening to Big Ice Cube's description, she couldn't help but feel suspicious. Could it be that Nansong sent people who only know how to eat and not do anything? She raised a possibility. That's not impossible, but Xiao Su suddenly frowned. "I suspect that Peng Huang is also here." Chu Qingyan's fingers paused. She walked over to sit in front of him with some astonishment. "Is that true? He suffered such a heavy injury back then. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have recovered so quickly. Moreover, he came here without any notice. It's very easy for someone to take revenge on him." Because the two countries were at war, many of the capital's nobles held high positions in the army. They weren't like those hedonistic sons of rich parents who muddled along in the capital's barracks. They worked hard to get to their positions. Later, when the three armies returned, they were buried in a hero's grave. This caused many of the capital's great families to hate Peng Huang to the bone. If he appeared without any notice, it would be very easy for him to be killed. This is also the reason why I didn't dare to make a judgment. It's just that in the past few days, I've seen a few unfamiliar faces appear in the city. These people weren't part of the bridal party, so I sent people to secretly investigate. However, I was afraid of being discovered, so I didn't follow too closely. However, these people's actions are very similar to Peng Huang's style of doing things. Moreover, there are a few familiar faces, which made me suspicious." Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. His expression sank. Chu Qingyan was a bit uneasy. If it was really as Big Ice Cube said, then if Nansong was plotting something, then wouldn't Xishuan be in danger again? Would she and Big Ice Cube be unable to leave again? Chapter 1262. At this moment, Xiao Ho and Peng Huang were sitting opposite each other. The steam from the tea in front of them was rising in spirals, obscuring their vision. Peng Huang leaned against the back of the chair with his arms crossed. He restrained his arrogance and said leisurely, "Princey, why are you in such a hurry?" Xiao Ho took a sip of the tea to moisten his throat. Then he slowly said, "These 2 days, my men were discovered by my father. Now he's sending people to investigate. Although they haven't found anything, I'm still worried. What's more, a few days ago, I went to the King of England's mansion for some business, which aroused my father's suspicion. He thinks that I'm involved with Xiao Su. If these 2 things happened in normal times, I wouldn't be so worried. But when these 2 things happen together, I'm really afraid that something will be found out." Peng Huang nodded, the corners of his mouth curling up into a smile. "Usually this kind of thing will affect the whole situation. You've been holding back for so many years just for this 1 year. If you're discovered, wouldn't all your efforts be wasted?" "Yes, this is exactly what I'm worried about." Xiao Ho played with the teacup in his hand with a calm expression. "How can the connections and forces I've painstakingly built for so many years be destroyed because of a small mistake?" Peng Huang raised his eyebrows slightly. "Although you say so, how can I not see Prince Yi's anxiety? Could it be that you already have a countermeasure? Xiao chuckled and met Peng Huang's inquisitive eyes. He said in a clear voice, "Of course. If I didn't have a countermeasure, how could I dare to disturb your highness?" Peng Huang saw Xiao relaxed and couldn't help but mutter in his heart. This was definitely not a small matter. However, Xiao in front of him was not nervous at all. On the contrary, he acted as if nothing had happened. This made him a little afraid of Xiao Xian, the lord who had no sense of existence. If this person was a friend, it would be fine. But if he became an opponent, it would be very troublesome. He might not be inferior to Xiao Su, but it was also because of this that he was looking forward to the scene between Xiao Su and Xiao. Once these two people who were on par with each other fought, it would probably be more exciting than any other scene. Please enlighten me, Prince E. I'm all ears. Xiao nodded. Then the corners of his lips lifted slightly as he slowly said, Imperial Father is investigating the relationship between me and Xiao Su. He suspects that the two of us are colluding together. This is what he is most worried about. As long as we put on a show for him and prove that I have no relationship with Xiao Su, and that we will not obstruct his idea of letting Xiao Ran inherit the throne, then my crisis will be resolved. Furthermore, this show has to attract a lot of attention. I'll take the opportunity to divert Imperial Father's attention from the fact that my weapons have been exposed. Then, I'll take the opportunity to fish in troubled waters and get rid of that lone craftsman to prevent future trouble. Then, I'll take the opportunity to frame Xiao Su for these weapons so that he won't be able to defend himself. After listening to Xiao's words, Peng Huang could not help but have a strong interest. He leaned forward slightly and asked curiously, You have said so much, but you still haven't revealed the secret. How do you want me to help you put on this show? Xiao curled his lips into a smile as a light flashed in his eyes. It's very simple. I want to arrange an assassination. The target of the assassination is myself, and the assassin is the fierce cavalry. Fierce cavalry? Isn't that Xiao Su's elite cavalry? Don't tell me you want. Peng Huang's eyes lit up. You want people to impersonate them? Xiao nodded. That's right. After so many years, my people have fought with Xiao Su's fierce cavalry countless times. They have a good understanding of them, so we can start from there. Saying this, Xiao looked up at Peng Huang. However, although they have a good understanding of the fierce cavalry, I am currently at the heart of the struggle. Sending out my own people is too risky, and it will easily be exposed. Therefore, I want to borrow some people from your highness to impersonate the fierce cavalry. My people will be responsible for teaching them some habits and moves. What does your highness think? We are allies. Your business is my business. What's there to say? How many people do you need? Just tell me and I will arrange it for you. Peng Huang agreed without hesitation. Xiao smiled and cupped his hands. Thank you, your highness. Prince Yi, you are too polite. Peng Huang raised his hand to block. Then he seemed to think of something and raised his eyebrows at the smiling fox in front of him. Didn't you say that Xiao Su planned to leave the capital? Now that you have done this to him, he can't leave even if he wants to. Moreover, he has already handed over the commander's seal. Now he has no bargaining chips in his hands. He doesn't even have the ability to challenge your father. You are basically pushing him into a fire pit. Xiao chuckled and said in a disapproving tone, Isn't this the result we want? 5 years ago, I was able to frame him for the assassination of Xiao Ran, and made my father transfer him far away. He almost died on the road. This time, I can still use the same trick and frame him so that he can't defend himself. Now the support for the crown prince is getting louder and louder. The party that supports Xiao Su and the party that supports Xiao Ran are on equal footing. However, the people are more inclined to support Xiao Su. However, Xiao Su isn't a candidate in my father's heart, and he is in a terrible fix. Xiao Su took the initiative to leave. Although this solved my father's urgent problem, no matter where Xiao Su goes, he will always be a thorn in my father's throat. Now I am just providing him with a reason to get rid of Xiao Su. In this way, I am still a very filial son who took the initiative to share his worries. Peng Huang laughed loudly. Filial? Haha, I have to say that your idea is really bad. Not only did you clear yourself of suspicion, but you also transferred the trouble to Xiao Su. You even framed him for murdering his own brother, and gave your father a reason to get rid of him. Princey, I must never become your opponent. Otherwise, I won't even know how I died. Your Highness, you're exaggerating. I'm just returning the favor to them for what they did to my grandfather's family back then. Isn't there a saying in Buddhism? If you plant the seeds, you'll have to taste the fruits of your actions? Xiao Ho revealed a cold smile. Although he didn't know what happened at Xiao Ho's mother's house, he could tell from Xiao Ho's words that it involved some secret in the palace. However, he had seen this kind of thing many times in the southern song. Pang Huang asked, since you hate Xiao Su so much, don't you think this ending is too easy for him? Xiao Ho laughed softly, and turned to look at Pang Huang. His eyes revealed an unfathomable smile which was somewhat terrifying. I don't hate Xiao Su. However, I want to achieve my goal through Xiao Su. I want to let those who stand behind him have a taste of what it means to fall short of success and despair. I want to return the suffering my mother went through back then, bit by bit. The expression in his eyes startled Pang Huang. It turned out that this gentle lord hid such a ruthless heart. Even someone like him, who had been immersed in the whirlpool of power for many years, felt a trace of fear. Chapter 1263. Seeing that Pang Huang had no objections to his plan, Xiao Ho leisurely brewed tea for himself. The person in front of him was elegant and calm. It was impossible to tell that he was the person who had just said that it was killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Some people hid their true face under a mask, as if they didn't exist. But when such a person didn't plan to hide himself, the counterattack was the most terrifying. Pang Huang retracted his gaze and asked, since the plan has been set, when do we prepare to move? Xiao Ho poured the tea smoothly. When the teacups were full, he put down the teapot. He lowered his eyebrows and thought for a moment. According to the usual practice, every month I have to go to Hugua Temple to worship Buddha, cultivate my body and mind, and eat vegetarian meals. This is something that the entire capital knows. Imperial Father and Xiao Su are no exception. And the time is in 3 days, so let's set it on that day. Saying this, he handed the brewed tea to Pang Huang. Okay, then 3 days later, send someone over to teach my people how to act as the fierce cavalry. This will add double insurance to our operation. Saying this, Pang Huang took the tea he handed over, and put it under his nose to sniff. A smile bloomed on his lips. I didn't know that you had this trick up your sleeve. I just have nothing to do to pass the time. Xiao Ho took a sip of tea and relaxed his brows. The person you want, I've already brought it over. Today, we can start teaching. Pang Huang's fingers paused and he looked at him suspiciously. So you've already done everything. Aren't you afraid that I won't agree? Xiao Ho raised the corner of his mouth, revealing an elegant and unrestrained smile. He said in a certain tone, you won't. Why? Pang Huang was surprised. He was so sure? Xiao Ho stood up and looked down at him from above. Because we have a common enemy. This is what I'm relying on. With that, he put down the teacup in his hand and looked at Pang Huang, who still hadn't come back to his senses. He smiled and said, thank you, Crown Prince, for the good tea. This prince will leave first. Next time, I'll come back for another cup. Goodbye. After he finished speaking, he turned around and slowly walked away with his hands behind his back. His figure was elegant and tall, and his azure clothes fluttered in the wind, giving others the illusion that he was gentle and harmless. However, only Pang Huang knew that this person was not as gentle and harmless as he appeared on the surface. He had the sharpness to see through people's hearts, the courage to cut off all means of retreat, the cunning and ruthless methods, and the forbearance that ordinary people did not have. At the same time, in the palace, there was another person who was scheming. Then, young master, how do you plan to give him a taste of his own medicine? The subordinate asked. Yu Qingxi tapped the folding fan in her hand and laughed mockingly. Isn't Pang Zhijing's fiancé, Princey, weak and sickly? This is enough for us to make use of. As she spoke, Yu Qingxi recalled the tacit understanding and intimacy between Pang Zhijing and Xiao Ho on the street that day. A nameless fire ignited in his heart. It was as if he saw the person who used to follow him suddenly stop following him and turn to identify him. He felt uncomfortable, as if what originally belonged to him had become someone else's. Although he didn't like Pang Zhijing and even loathed her, as a princess, Pang Zhijing boldly and passionately pursued him. Although it made him very annoyed, it also gave him a sense of satisfaction and inflated his vanity. At this time, the person who only had eyes for him didn't care about him anymore. This strong sense of contrast made him angry. He would never allow anyone to spy on his things. This was the deep-rooted bad habit of a heartless man. To put it crudely, he was occupying the latrine but not taking a shit. Therefore, Yu Qingxi continued. Back then, Pang Zhijing drugged Ro, and almost made her lose her chastity. Now we will use the same method. Then you plan to use it on the princess? The subordinate inquired. No, Yu Qingxi denied. A trace of cunning appeared on his face. The person we want to drug is Xiao. Ah, I don't understand. The young master clearly wanted to teach the princess a lesson. Why did he target Prince Yi? Yu Qingxi sneered. Xiao's body is weak. As long as he touches a little bit of the drug and can't find a woman to detoxify him, he will bleed to death from his 7 orifices. If he finds a woman to detoxify him, his weak body won't be able to withstand it. It won't be long before he dies on the bed. No matter how he dies, he will leave behind a ridiculing infamy. Even if he dies under a flower, he will still be a romantic ghost. This can only be regarded as an accident at most. No one can find out that we did it. However, the wedding is imminent and the groom dies in such a way. How sad, how embarrassed, and how sad our princess will be if she dies in such a way. For the sake of the friendship between the two countries, the Sichuan emperor will definitely arrange another marriage for her. But as long as there is one, I will solve it. At that time, the princess will be infamy for being a jinx to her husband. Let's see if anyone dares to marry her in the future. Yu Qingxi laughed heartily. Yes, yes, yes. Young master, your method will tarnish the reputation of Prince Yi and the princess without using a single soldier. One of them indulges in excessive indulgence, and the other is a jinx to her husband. This plan is simply brilliant. The subordinate gave a thumbs up repeatedly. However, after the flattery, the subordinate asked in confusion, but will this affect the marriage alliance between the two countries? Yu Qingxi withdrew his smile and waved his hand. He said carelessly, Father didn't agree with the marriage alliance between the two countries. Although we lost the war and suffered heavy losses, we can still make a comeback after a few years of recuperation. However, the marriage alliance can temporarily delay the time and numb the Sichuan kingdom. When they think that they have subdued us, we can lead the army and attack again. We can also take the Sichuan kingdom into our pocket. The subordinate nodded. Then when do we take action? Since there is no time like the present, let's set it for 2 days later. Yu Qingxi opened his folding fan and fanned himself proudly. He really wanted to see Pang Zhijing's expression when she found out that her sickly and weak fiancé had died in another woman's bed. It really made him nervous and looked forward to it. At this moment, he suddenly remembered something. He couldn't help but turn his head and ask, By the way, you just said that the princess went to Prince Yi's mansion today and returned to the courier station with a bad complexion? The subordinate nodded. I was afraid that the other party would find out, so I didn't dare to send anyone to get close to inquire. Yu Qingxi muttered to himself for a while, and a light flashed through his eyes. He then closed his fan and stood up. He said with a smile, As a member of the bridal party, I didn't even go to the courier station to see the princess. I was afraid that I would be criticized, so I'd better go and show my face. Moreover, the princess is in a bad mood. As a subject, I have the responsibility to help share her burden. Therefore, this trip seems unavoidable. After he finished speaking, Yu Qingxi strode out of the door. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.